Thank you for joining us for this special Saturday workshop. This was rescheduled due to a water leak here in the boardroom. For the record, my name is Greg Paluski, the proud superintendent of the North Little Rock School District, and I want to, let's just do some introductions so everybody knows who's here. And I'll start with Mr. Brian Brown.
I'm Brian Brown, CFO for the North Little Rock School District.
There you're in the corner.
I'm in the corner.
Hi, I'm Scott Beardsley. I'm the school district's municipal advisor, and I'm with First Security Beardsley.
I'm Brom Cahey with Taggart Architects.
Daryl Tessman, Archford Education and Service Cooperative. I'm a facilities coordinator.
So, Madam President, members of our Board of Education, our topic today is to talk about our capital improvement project priorities. So we're going to start with Mr. Brown. We'll do a high-level overview. We'll talk about our priorities, and then we'll kind of get further. And please ask any questions along the way. And we appreciate our public that's tuning in and watching live. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, sir. So the purpose of this meeting is to review the North Little Rock School District's construction project list and to review our district's long-term teacher salary investment goals. We're going to talk about both of those items here. We have our construction list here that has developed over time. Let me see if I can make this a little bit larger.
Enlarge that would be great.
This was uploaded, right?
It's going to be. This Pat will upload it.
As of last night, there was nothing there.
Okay, so when we talk about construction projects, we have to look at our building fund and look at that current balance on hand, and then any anticipated revenue coming into that and other funding sources such as state partnership funds. Our building fund balance as of yesterday was $29,032,581, and we're projecting some savings that will contribute to the building fund over the next 3 years. This savings, if you recall, is related to and tied to your refinance of the bond issues that we refinanced with Mr. Beardsley. And we have 3 years worth of savings that we're going to deposit over the next 3 years. And that's one-time money because we do pick up with our bond payment in that 4th year. We do pick up with state partnership funding is another source of revenue, and Mr. Tessman has helped us with this. The district has a facilities plan that is filed with ADE, and we have some state partnership funding that we are hoping that will materialize with us. That official notification and official amount will be released on May 1, 2023. We have also, Mr. Tessman, this is the old main line that I have in there. Will we get that one on, that one will come in on May 1, 2025, correct? Those partnership funding?
Yes, it depends on what cycle that we apply for the project. There's always 2 years to the biennium. If you decide to go the first year, yes, it will be in May 1, 25, and the second one would be in 26.
So depending on our
Yes.
application, we can
Yes.
time that either for 25 or 26. Okay, so we took the full building fund balance. We backed out $10 million because we don't want to deplete our building fund. So we're shooting for a building fund balance at the end of the projects for $10 million. So that shows you here a total available revenue with the asterisk of these two partnership fundings. These are still not in stone, but those are what we're projecting for those two projects. It's $54.2 million. So then we have a list of future projects, and the first one on the list is the middle school, North Little Rock Middle School. We've got $58 million plugged in there for that. I've actually had to adjust these numbers recently because we got some more accurate numbers for other items on this list. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But I've got $58.2 million plugged in for the new middle school. And then we have the renovation of Old Main. That one we're projecting to be approximately $15 million. The estimated demo of sophomore and annex, we have $1 million budgeted for that project. The cost of renovation of the police admin octagon building, $500,000. We've recently been working on that project. That's where special services will relocate to from the annex to the police administration building. Now it's school district's special services admin building. But we've been working really hard to keep that in budget. And there was, right now, we have estimates, all of our quotes have kept us within that budget. Estimated purchase and renovation for a new ALE property, $2 million. And estimated renovation of a current ALE for other district purposes, $2 million. And then estimated demo of the police and courts building would be $1 million. And then adding a parking lot there where the police and courts building is. That's one of the ones we had to update here because we have some new numbers on that. So I've got $3 million plugged in there. Then we have contingencies for all projects at $5 million, and we have $87.7 million. So the difference between our expenditures in this box and the revenue in this box is $33.5 million. So then that's where we have to look at how do we fund it. So I'll just sort of pause right here.
It's a good spot.
And if you have any questions about any item on this list that I need to expand on, I will.
So I see where you have the funding. Is this our money from the funding? This does not include the city coming in and helping us? This does not include any partnerships that we have with anyone? This is just our own money that's accounted for?
So in the revenue section, these two lines, the $17.2 million.
Right.
That is state partnership money. And we don't have a definitive answer from the state as of yet on these two lines. The other lines here, the $29 million, these projected savings for 23, 4, and 5, those are district funds that, those are only district funds. So there's no city partnership funding or any other funding included in this.
What is that 12 million potential estimated? Is that where the state will come in for the middle school? Is that the middle school estimate?
Yes.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
And then where's the 5 million?
So of the $58 million, we're anticipating $12.2 million contribution from the state. So the difference in these two, the difference in 58.2 and 12.2, that'd be what, 46 million? So 46 million would be the school district's cost on that new building, and the state's cost would be 12.2 million. So these are the projected numbers that we have in there at this point.
And maybe, Mr. Brown, and I like the idea of just pressing pause, maybe the shift is really talking about and make sure that we're all on the same page. Are these our priorities? The first recommendation that I made was certainly a brand new middle school, and I think we've all had a deep conversation about that has to be our top priority. And then certainly, Old Main has been out there as well. I just wonder, Mr. Brown, if maybe this is a good time to kind of shift, if those are our top two priorities, Mr. Kay could talk about, and then we can certainly come back to this, but I think maybe showing what the potential projects could look like to determine if those are our priorities. Then I think if we know those are our priorities, then we can start talking about dollars and cents and our process going forward if those are our priorities. I don't know if everybody's okay with that, because I think I'm excited to see what he's going to show us.
So we'll start with the middle school. Do I need a mic, or can you hear me?
I think
Yeah, just,
he's okay. Okay. Oh,
just go ahead.
Okay, thank you for having us here. We're excited about this project, and I would be amiss to not mention James Meyer, who can't be here. He's the designer for this project and the heavy thinker for this. And so we've met a couple of times with the district and the staff on these plans, and I wanted to describe some of the things to you that we've discussed. So unfortunately, James can't be here to be more eloquent in the design, but here goes. To familiarize yourself, this is the existing, everyone see the building?
yes.
This is the existing campus. You can see that it's pretty dense and very large. There's a lot of land and a lot of buildings. This is the names and functions of all the buildings. So 6th grade is here with an addition that we did about some years ago. 7th, 8th grade building, the theater building, dining, and the gymnasium. On this also, the farm is right up here in the corner. There's a 6th grade outdoor play area here, and then the athletic field that's used for PE and such. So we wanted to talk about the challenges of this site. So we were asked to look at what needs to be done, how do we view this building now, how do we view the campus now, and how can we make this better. And so some of the challenges are the site seems overbuilt. All the buildings look the same. They're really large. They don't have many windows. It feels like a big school. So, and there's no visual wayfinding. There's an entrance here to 6th grade. There's an entrance here to 7th and 8th grade. And otherwise, unless you've been here before, it's very difficult to navigate where you are, where you need to go. It's a very closed off campus, so you can't really see inside. You don't know really if it's even a school, because all the activity goes on inside. There's limited natural light, because back in the day when these buildings were built, they were energy efficient, energy conscious, and so the windows are little bitty strips, and they let very little natural light in. They're very tight, and so that's not really where the technology is today. The farm is on the edge of the property, which is a security concern, because there's kids out here for hours a day, and it's right next to the Target, the parking lot of buildings that are here. And the public just finds it hard to get around. Some events that happen in the gym, you have to cross through an opening here, cross through the courtyard to get to the gym. And again, the wayfinding is a problem, and security as well. Because once they come in here, they can go anywhere basically. Then also the auditorium is overbuilt. District doesn't really have a need for 1,200-seat auditorium, and we don't have that many kids at this spot. Community's not using it very much, and it's pretty much become dilapidated because of not being used. We were talking about this earlier. This building is over 50 years old, and so it's more difficult to maintain. The repairs are getting more common and more frequent, and it's more expensive to do this. The last renovation we did was some HVAC and roof on this portion of the building. And then also the gymnasiums. There's 2 gymnasiums here. It's like that's kind of overbuilt. They have their purpose. One was athletics and one was PE, but now we kind of use it as a multi-purpose. So we really just need one. So the goal is to replace the middle school campus buildings, something that shares the current vision and direction of the district. And thank you. And so why do we do this, and why are we here? So we have the opportunity now to add some clarity to the campus. We can clean up the site, and we can create a varied learning opportunity with new buildings and new technologies and new ways to think about the campus and learning. We can create a small campus feel instead of this large. When you come in here, you can see the one wing all the way down. So, now the thinking is that we can create a small campus feel with pods and with activities that are smaller for the kids. We can allow people to become more engaged with the courtyard, with making openings into that, so it can feel more open and not like an enclosed, courtyard. Let's see, the 6th grade playground is here, and again, along with the farm, the 6th grade is kind of off to the side. You can't see it from the office. It's not visual at all. It's kind of down on the hill, so it's not the ideal place for 6th grade. And let's see, the last one was the pod. We would create pods for learning. There's kind of a move now to be more neighborhood, more pod. We don't want to get lost in a big crowd. A lot of the parents' comments were that the school is too large for my 6th grader. But if we broke those down into smaller elements, they would be more individualized and more welcoming, and the students could have their pod of friends. So we want to do also with this opportunity, we want to create new openings, new welcoming points of entry, something that the parents and students and visitors can say, this is where we are and where we need to go. Let's see. And then also, one thing about this campus, there's already lots of infrastructure that won't be covered by new partnership monies or new district monies. We have extensive parking lots here. We have extensive and somewhat new parking lots here, parking lots on the south. So we've already have that infrastructure that we don't have to rebuild. Some of it needs repairing, but it's not a complete rebuild. We already have sufficient utilities on the site. Electrical, plumbing, sanitary sewer, everything is here that we can plug into and is ready to go for us, that we can just expand on. Let's see. And then also, this is, we've all gone to school here. I mean, this is a center point of our community. It's a place that we know and recognize, and so we think that this is a proper place for the middle school to be because of its history and the future of the district.
When was that building, when was that campus built?
It was 50 years ago, or a few years beyond 50 years, because the 7th, 8th grade and the 6th grade just timed out of the 50 year. So that was a deal with the state funding, is that we didn't get a lot of the funding for this back in the day because the buildings weren't yet 50 years old and weren't eligible for demolition, and now they are. And so so we get all of those monies as a demo project. So one of the concerns, and how do you do this and still maintain classes? How do you phase this, which is the most difficult project or proposal for this, still keeping the campus functional, keeping it safe, and being able to do this reasonably in a timely manner. So here's our thoughts. We can demo the auditorium, which is overbuilt and we don't use much anymore. Demo this building, and then this is where the 7th and 8th grade building would be located. So it's a 2-story building. This is like 7th grade building, 2 stories, 8th grade building, 2 stories, and that would be built after the auditorium is demolished. The kids still remain in their building until this one is done. And so then the 7th, 8th graders move into their new building, and then we demo the south building. And once in the 6th grade stays, everybody's still in the building. And then after the 7th and 8th grade is rebuilt, bless you, the 6th grade can move into their new building. And so you can see that everybody's still in either their existing facility or moved into a new one. At that point, when 6th grade is down here, we can demo the 6th grade building. And then with the 6th grade building and still keeping these functioning, And once the sixth grade building is demoed, we can build the gymnasium. And this is a building that's multi-purpose gymnasium. It's also used as the safe room. Lots of districts it's a large open space, can hold a lot of people, and so we fortified this building, and other districts are even opening up to the community during a storm. They're tied to some alarm system that the doors can open, and people can shelter at this location if that's an option for the school. But this would house the gymnasium, locker rooms, concession, and then it has a pre-function space and a public space in front.
Do you want to just mention the media and the admin?
Oh, yeah. So back in the a few phases ago, when the 7th, 8th grade was built, this admin is part of that too. So one of the first phases is the admin gets relocated to this pod. And then as part of the 6th grade demo, we get a new media center, which is the specialty functions, the art, music, and then the library, the technology forward library. Yeah, so thank you. And then once the gymnasium is built, we're still using this one. Once the gymnasium is built, we can demo those 2 existing gyms, and an interesting thing happens. It opens up this courtyard to an area that is now visible to the field below. We can take this farm area and move it inside next to the dining, and the concept is like a farm to table. So, and it's tiered. We can have tiered farms like what they do in many other countries, in Italy and Costa Rica and things, where they don't have flat land like in Arkansas. And so you can learn about hydroponics. Yeah, you can do that in a greenhouse. So it's a way for the kids to learn sustainability, being able to grow their own food, and with the adjacency to the dining, maybe they grow food to share with everybody, or to cook and share in the dining room. So moving the farm into a space that's more active to all the students, more visible to all the students, and it becomes part of a learning opportunity instead of something to maintain in the corner. Also, when you demo the gyms, this becomes the 6th grade outdoor play area. So this is a 6th grade building, lots of glass in the middle, and so they can be seen a lot better than they could in the past, down the hill. So this opens up to be the 6th grade play goals and hard surfaces and things. So in summary, this is what the campus would look like after completion. And our thought is that each one of these would take about a year to do. So each phase is about a year. But also note that like the classroom buildings are just 2 of those years. So the classroom spaces and things would just be affected 2 years, and then the other 2 years are the gymnasium and this gym up here, or the green space and the gymnasium here. So, yes, ma'am.
How will the 6th grade get from their campus to the dining, to the cafeteria?
So these yellow lines are similar to what we have now, the canopies. So there would be covered walkways, similar to what they have now, to get to the cafeteria. One thing about this design, and we can go into it in just a minute, but the hub, the art rooms and choir rooms and voice rooms and things are in this elbow between the 6th and 7th and the 6th grade, 7th, 8th, and the 6th grade. So it's more common to both grades.
Shared space.
Yeah, that's kind of a shared space. And the administration is common to both also. It's easy to get to, covered inside the buildings and so forth. But yeah, there's a series of canopy walkways to get you to this gym, to this cafeteria.
Is the 6th grade building just one story?
Yes, ma'am. This is a one-story 6th grade building, which now is 2-story. And so that's a benefit. All the kids are on the same level, but you can see these are like little pods. And so it functions like a smaller community, a smaller neighborhood. But yeah, 6th grade is all on one level. and 7th, 8th grade are on 2. And in the centers, in the, my list is completely old now.
I was gonna say, do we have the photograph, the
Yeah.
design?
So
You'll be able to visualize.
So we have some, call them the big ideas. These are 10,000-foot views. Nothing's been designed yet. Nothing's been really planned out yet. But these are our images and our ideas on what it potentially could be. It's kind of to let you know kind of what we see and what we think this could be. So the first idea is, you know, what's the identity of the school? How do you enter it? Where do the public enter? Where do the students enter? What is that like? And so we create these entry porches at the 7th, 8th grade, and at the 6th grade, and at the administration wing. So it's light, and then there's lots of glass, and you know that this is an entry. Like the only way now you know it's an entry is it has the words, you know, of the school above it. So now this is a very inviting, lots of light, and it's identifiable as where you need to go. And we can do with graphics, you know, 6th grade, 7th, 8th grade, can be very identifiable.
Quick question, so on the, so I guess in theory, since the 7th, 8th grade campus is 2 stories, so 7th will be on like 1 floor, and then 8th will be on the other floor, except with the combination classes or whatever, right?
It could be.
Or
It could be that
electives.
each pod is 2-story.
Okay.
So 7th grade has a first floor and a second floor. And 8th grade has a first floor and a second floor.
Okay,
But-
gotcha.
But that's kind of our thought, is to keep the grades in the pod so they go up and down the stairs within their pod. And so the 7th grade students and 8th grade don't have to
Commingle.
to commingle and cross.
And I think the other thing, you know, as we heard from parents since I've arrived, just some of where we lose students to the, you know, that leave out of elementary school but leave the middle school. So one of the notions, as we talked about, was we have to make this school feel small, personalized, and inviting. And Brahm and his team, we had a long conversation about transitioning out of our, you know, elementary schools into 6th grade, kind of the concept of being on one level. And then you'll see where they've also designed, as they transition to 2-story, smaller, but there's some common elements you'll see that are similar to our current high school that helps in that transition of learning space.
That's right, yeah.
So there won't be an auditorium on this campus, or?
Not like we have now. It's not there's not a large auditorium. They can use the commons, the multi-use gymnasium, but the funding doesn't allow for an auditorium. And so there are some spaces that we're thinking about, you know, when you do have large gatherings of people, where do they go? What do they do? And so, I'll get to that in just a second. So again, this is the pod idea. So even in 6th grade, on one level, there are individual little neighborhoods that the kids can feel an identity in, and not just a large school. The learning stairs are this similar to what is in the high school, that look and that feel. Those are areas in between the pods that are collaborative, that parents and teachers can come together, and it's a way to transition one of the between levels. And so one of the problems with this site is it's very hilly. Like this building is about 6 feet above the courtyard, and so how do you transition back and forth? And so through these learning stairs and these open areas, that's where you can come together and then go down to the different levels, either 2-story or down to the courtyard. And then in that central spine, as you get closer to the courtyard, you can have things like this image has, where you can open up the wall and it becomes an indoor-outdoor learning space. And so on nice days, you can open that up. You can have a class do a science presentation or do a breakout group in those kind of spaces. But it starts to become an inside-outside feel. And then classrooms with vitamin D, it's like, because they're tearing down and they're outside in the courtyard, you can have learning opportunities outside. So in this image, they've opened up this wall, and because it was a nice day, they can come out side and being stairs, these things progress to the courtyard, and so at the edge here you can have some tiered seating, and the courtyard's in the back, and you can have a board there to do presentations on, and so we're trying to get people to can you use this courtyard that otherwise it's just you cross to get to the cafeteria. And the special element about this building and about the campus is the front door of the campus. And so with 6th grade entry being here, 7th, 8th grade here, and this being on the corner next to the busy street, this is kind of our front door. And so and it's also the mixed use space where you have computer rooms, technology rooms. You have inside, we have envisioned a 2-story library that can look over into a large open space that can be used as an auditorium. You can have seating there. You could have a stage for presentations. So things could happen inside. And this is kind of our public face. This is what we want to show off to visitors, to potential parents and students to the district. We want to show them that we're technology forward, that we express those ideals of new technology and learning. So this is kind of the image that we envision putting ourselves forward to be. In this, on the courtyard side, another opportunity for an auditorium space or multi-gathering. We have another tiered seating to make up that transition in grade, and they can sit on the stairs. There can be a stage there. There can be a plaza at mid-level. We can take some of those functions that were inside and bring them to the outside on certain occasions. You can't do it for everything, sound and acoustics and things, but it does give you an opportunity that didn't exist before, that kind of highlights, light and sun and nature and breezes and things. And then the gymnasium I mentioned ago, this is our community space also. And so there's parking here when there's games or practices. This is a public face. And we're envisioning a canopy space that's covered, and it's a public gathering space. And it also is another opening into the courtyard. And through that, you'll see all these different outdoor learning opportunities, and it's open. And so, again, you can juxtapose it the way it is now, where you can't see into the courtyard. And now we're kind of celebrating that courtyard and that connection. So this is a public space, and this building has the safe room that I think now the building code requires this. And so a note came out from Daryl that makes sure that you have one of these. And of course, we all want one. And now it's mandatory by the building codes. But we'll have enough area in there to cover our students, and if we want to open it up to the public, that's an option too. And then the big idea for the farm to table is moving it from the corner. We've opened up by removing those gymnasiums, open this up to allow more visual connection to the field, which we didn't have before. Most people didn't know the field was down there. And so now that's an open visual, and these are some images of what we see going on there. It's a collaborative. There's greenhouses, maybe for hydroponics. They can learn. Maybe there's a kitchen there that they can learn how to prepare, and then they can just collaborate inside this greenhouse space. Also, there's covered patios that if they want to eat outside, there'll be benches out there. So now I don't think there's benches to eat outside. So, kind of changing and growing with where we are and how we, live in a school district. It's fun. It's inviting. It's something we can tell parents, amazing things are going on at the middle school. We've got technology forward. We've got identities for each of the kids. It's not just one big building. It's neighborhoods. And we've got an open courtyard that's part of the community. It's part of all of these buildings. And we're inside and outside with our learning. And so that's, I think that's, so. I didn't cover any of my notes, but yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just have two questions. Library, both will be sharing the same library.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I have a problem, like, I don't have a problem, but the gymnasium is so far away. And if schools get ready to have things, you know, like in the morning or something, or if they gotta go to the gym, in order for PE, they have to go across campus to get, is that the only? Yes, it is.
Yes, ma'am.
They have to go all the way across campus in order to have physical education, if that's what I'm asking you.
Yes, ma'am. And from the way it was before, it's a little bit further because the gyms used to be here.
I
So
know.
6th grade, for example, had to go back, to this spot. And now they go to here. It's a little bit further, probably a couple of 100 feet further, but it's still within this safety confines. And, I don't think that distance to me and to my kids, I don't think that would be it's still within the safety realm. It's still, within the campus. So I think that's, a surmountable
Well,
idea.
when we look at it now, before you got to 6th grade campus and we're here, seems like it is quite a distance, I would say. And maybe in my mind, maybe I'm wrong if you all have been walked that distance, but I was just had some concerns about that.
Yeah.
That's my.
Well, we know what sixth graders do when they walk a long distance too, along the way. With
Right.
how, there may be some behavior problems getting from one space way over to that gym.
Yeah, and a lot of the things, with the designated canopies, that's the place that they walk. It's just like a hallway. It's an outdoor hallway, but instruction could be, you've got to walk underneath the canopy, and it's just the same as if you're walking inside. So that's could be a lesson to learn, how to behave in areas that you think you're, free and wild, but you're still in a corridor, but on the outside. So.
Well, let me ask a question. It is just for question purposes. Is it any type of room in the 6th grade campus to possibly, to touch on what Ms. Williams was talking about or speaking to, like a smaller, like a half, maybe court size area just to have like for PE classes, not necessarily games, but just for PE classes or whatever. Yeah, so they don't so they don't have to do that.
Sure. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Yeah, it's not a programmed element that the state pays for, but you may find value in that we want to include in 6th grade so that they don't have to go to, across
Walk the
campus
block.
to.
You right.
Yep.
So
we
yeah,
could-
they can still have games and everything out there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that
that's
could
their
be,
outdoor.
Yeah.
That's the outdoor play, so it's
but
outdoor
it could
basketball.
be an indoor
Right.
space.
That could be indoor.
Or you
And-
can kind of serve it as multifunctional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. So if it's not a stadium, not like with
Yeah.
seats and things, we could put that in this building, if that's a priority to say, we don't want, for just a simple activities class, we don't want to have to go to the one gymnasium that we have, and it's probably busy anyway. So let's have something in the 6th grade. That's absolutely possible.
Yeah, I like that
I think
idea
that's a
or
good idea.
that thought of it a lot better.
Because I think that's part of what we're thinking about in these small neighborhoods. So you use this for like large classrooms, and this is a class that's going to happen here. Well, maybe you want an activity for just one classroom. Where do they go? You don't want to take up this whole building
Right.
for that. So I think it's valuable to have a space that they could be just a single classroom to go blow off steam, in where they are.
Because even with that area that has that current courtyard area, that green space, I guess that's like AstroTurf. No, go down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right there.
That's existing, yeah.
That's
mean-
existing.
Yeah, so that's already existing. I mean, but it's in the grand scheme of things, it's really big out there, and so I mean, even if it's just something simple.
Yeah.
just
Depending on the weather, they can
Yeah.
have class right there.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but just kind of where you can have like a multifaceted type of, if it's just for like a PE class.
Right. They could do yoga on that.
Yeah.
But did you just say that they weren't paying for no PE classes?
I don't believe that
Thank you.
that is.
They don't have to pay for it,
They
but we
don't
can
have-
still utilize
No,
the
no,
space.
no, you misunderstood me.
Oh, what?
I heard him in his presentation said because of fundings that they were not paying for that level. So therefore, that's why, since you mentioned that, I would just bring that back so you could kind of explain that, how you would implement a small gym or something for that department.
So the whole campus, costs, $58 million. Well, the funding goes to just certain types of spaces, classrooms, library, or not even libraries.
It has a library and it has gym space, but if you want an extra gym space,
That would be on us.
then that would be on,
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
the district's.
You can have this, it's just not funded, with state monies.
I know, that's what I was talking about, because we have to be looking at where the money coming from when you're doing that. And that's why we have to be objective about the situation. It's a desire, but is it possible to put that funding, add to that funding? That's my concern.
And one of the things that we've found and are investigating is the safe room for here. Some of that, we think, and that's right, that we can have some funding to contribute to that safe room.
Yes, that's just established as a requirement by the fire marshal. As a matter of fact, we've adopted IBC 2021 code, which requires for every facility,
New facility?
new facilities, to have those safe rooms. So you're going to have to build that. There's also, as far as funding's concerned, there's some bills going through legislation right now that I'm keeping my eye on, which may help the districts in their cost of construction. Right now, construction costs are capped at $200 per square foot. That means the state gives you, estimates the value of that building to be at $200 per square foot. When in the past 3 years, it has escalated up to $350 to $450. So you have schools that have had projects that are approved, funded, and they're having to give back their money because they can't afford the increase of construction. What's going through legislation right now is that the state would fund per actual construction square footage means value. That would help y'all great. I mean, that would take that, and that's what I've had on my sheet right here that I handed out, was just an estimate of what you could get. Including that, within this past week, your district's wealth index, that means your share of the project has dropped from 0.44% or 44%. I'm on the
This one, okay,
landscape sheet here. It's went from 44% down to 32% of the project. So that's going to increase the state's funding and decrease your funding. I don't believe I conveyed that to Brian here this week. That's my fault. But that would have affected that figure, that 12 million you saw up there. That would raise it up to 14, 15 million for state share. So this project is looking great for you guys. With your wealth index coming down, that means you rank higher on the project. Due to the district inviting the engineers to come out and inspect that middle school when they originally said that those buildings can stay, that helped your FCI level go up, which raises your odds of getting the project. So this project is looking wonderful to get approved. I'll tell you that right now. So I'd take it seriously.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you talked about the windows and glasses. Just for clarity, because I'm a visual, and so I'm imagining, like on the elementary, that's too much glass. What type of glass are you looking at as far as opening? Because, if I was a shooter right now on elementary, where are you gonna hide?
Yeah.
Because you can shoot everybody up from the outside.
Yeah, so there's a conflict there between getting light in and having safety and security. And so there are compromises. That wall of glass could be this high, up from eye level, and then you have glass above that, and it can be, high performance glass that reduces glare, reduces heat gain, and so you're able to have glass without all the negative consequences of it. But yeah, the safety and security, is a deal. I know that there are films that you can put over the glass on the inside that makes it, you can't bust through it. You can shoot through it, but you can't bust through it to break in and such. And so there are technologies that we can investigate in order to get the most glass, maintaining safety, and then keeping within the heat gain of the energy code. So yeah, that's a very real concern. And you hear about it on the news. And so with the entry features that we have, we want it to be welcoming. We want it to be inviting and a fun place to be. But you also have the level of security that you need too. So, yes.
Can I object for a minute? With the LEARNS Act bill that's going through right now, it focuses a lot on security and safety of the campuses. One of those requirements, this project is a moving target as far as cost and what it has to be at this point until session ends and everything is defined. But part of that security aspect is there will be safety qualified inspector that Brom and Taggart will have to submit their project to see if they meet all aspects of security. And there may be some changes in that. There'll be bollards, fencing to guide in foot traffic. There'll be shatter-resistant film put on all the windows. There'll be bullet-resistant film. There will be fencing around the whole campus as far as building access. It's going to be hard to really project anything at this point until this session ends.
Yeah, and with the buildings that we did, the elementary schools and the high schools, we introduced a level of safety and security to those buildings that were kind of unique at its time. We have single points of entry. We have card entry and buzzer entry. You have to go through the office to get into the school. We have bus parking on one side and passenger pickup on the other. So there are elements that we've had tested and proven that we will continue to build on. So yeah, and whatever is required by the state, by the education department, we'll certainly meet those. Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you were talking about the safety security element as far as the shatter and the bulletproof filming, we can also add, and just as a question, we can also look at maybe some temperature type of filming, because I know like some of the elementary schools that we have gone to, like the sides that have those big glass walls, it gets kind of hot in those cafeterias, or you can just tell it's a big difference as far as temperature.
Blinding.
Great, we have the
Blinding.
Yeah, and so we have that green effect that we're getting more light in, but it becomes a temperature thing. So it's kind of almost like the gift and the curse at the same time, but some type of way to regulate that.
Right, it's like you're getting passive solar energy, which is great, but then I think it was Lakewood, I remember Dr. Reynolds was, they had put the computer lab right there by the glass wall, and of course computers give off a lot of heat.
Yeah.
So immediately then they came in and had to pay for blinds to come up and put across all of that glass to try to keep some of that passive solar heat from coming in and heating up that computer lab even more. Yeah. And then I know I heard at that time talk about putting some film up there, and that cost was like prohibitive to try to put something up there to keep some of the heat out. So I'd like that to be addressed, but also we have the 6th grade building that will be facing south.
That's right.
So I don't know if there's some passive solar that can happen there, or if any solar is even being looked at for these buildings. I know the 7th grade building's going to be facing the east, and then the other side would be the west, where the sun comes pouring in here in the south and adds a lot of heat in the spring and summer and fall.
The west is a concern for the 7th, 8th grade building. The orientation that you'd like to have for all your buildings is east-west, because it reduces the amount of heat gain on the smallest side. South exposure is brilliant because you can use sunshades, that can help with the glare, that can get light inside, but without all the heat gain and such. So this is a great elevation to have. This one, not so much. And so, what do you do on this kind? Is it films? Is it a higher grade of glass? The technologies of glass has improved a lot over the past 10 years. And and shades also that are timed with the time of day, so you don't have to adjust those. They adjust themselves based on, the heat of the day.
So should the 7th, 8th grade building be oriented east-west instead of being north-south as it is right now? I mean, could that be possible
That would
on that
increase
plot of
cost.
ground?
It could increase cost. I mean, yeah, we can flip it, but by utilizing the space that we have, utilizing the layout that we have already, that's what they're doing, so that's saving us money. But yes, in theory, we could flip it, but in theory, it may cost us another $2 million plus.
I mean, I'm just saying, put it instead of putting it where it is now, put it, say, where the gym area is going to be,
Yeah.
because that runs east and west. So
Yeah.
you don't have a huge space that's going to be on the west side.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's with the existing site, and it is a puzzle to have. And we did look at all of the locations of this, but one thing we considered is to not have kids in portables. If we did both of the schools, what the 6th grade would have to be in portables, because there's nowhere else for them to go, and so they would be in a portable for a year. And so part of our proposal, and again, nothing's in stone, and we're all welcome to discussion, was to try to keep kids from being in portables, because this is like, this is the school that we lose students in, so we want to keep that going. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have two questions, but about the portables, I thought if our priorities are we go ahead and get Old Main, we could put some of those kids in Old Main while we tore down. You may be able to speed up the project. I don't know. I was just
Okay.
That's what we
thinking of-
did when we built the high school, because I went with the 10th grade over to Poplar Street. We just moved them to another building that we had.
just a thought I had, but
Okay.
and this is more for Dr. P. I think a lot of times architects do a great job on the building, but they haven't really talked to everybody inside how the building's used. And I know that happens for us a lot in our business. Like, we always need more space than we get. So I was thinking, what about scheduling? If we're down to one library for the whole campus, I mean, how does that impact scheduling? Right now they have dual. So I'm wondering if we talk to the people who are actually going to be using this building, how that's going to impact them for classes and stuff, and no offense to
No,
you, but
that's-
you'll have no way of knowing.
I mean, that's exactly the next step we need to do.
That's right.
Because
It would
we're
be-
at 10,000 feet here. If we get the concept and the excitement about what's possible, then we go into the weeds and we say, okay, how does this work for everybody?
Because we'll have to do, focus groups with teachers that are in that building and how it's used. We'll have to sit down and have community forums and talk to parents, and
We don't want
there's
to miss that step.
there's
That's
still a
huge.
lot that would have to, if this is the board's priority and we're moving in this direction, that will be part of, it will have to be part of our next steps, because that will yield a lot more dialogue and information that maybe, as you're mentioning, there's some challenges that we haven't thought about in the use of this space. The last thing I will say is I know this week we're getting ready to launch some things in the larger district's vision around E4 and our philosophy that it's about exposure at elementary school and an exploration for interest in middle school. And I think that's where the concept, when we had talked of, we all know because we've interviewed students how popular the East program is with the farm. I mean, I can't go to any of those schools and talk to a kid and they're just absolutely in love with it. And the concept is, let's build upon some current success and add to it. So imagine there could be an agricultural science theme to this particular school, and then that really starts thinking about how do we use the space for learning. And that's why in our discussions it was very important for us to have outdoor learning labs or outdoor learning spaces where kids can get outside. We know that's good for their health, the social emotional piece. So we're trying to tie in the latest research as well as the opportunity to, for a brand new school tied to a theme around interest and I think and safety for the farm to table. I mean, there's just so much that we could do with that theme and
then the
build upon it.
agriculture piece also.
Absolutely. So because at the end of the day, we've got to think about it's about teaching and learning, and how do we want to use the space to yield an environment that is conducive for that.
I love your project, but the only thing I was asking if you could include would be the gym piece. That would be my main concern, because I would not, as Ms. McLean had said, that distance from the buildings to that space. I see that the 8th grade campus is right across, but this campus down here, that is too far. That piece is too far.
So when you're saying gym, you mean just like a PE space, not
Excuse
necessarily?
me.
I'm asking a question.
Okay.
Friend?
I was talking to him. So my attitude is trying to get an understanding. We'd already said we have a gym up there, but we had said we could possibly have a PE space, Miss West. That's what we had said previously, okay?
Right, let's just cover that.
Well, we were at the middle school the other day, and I think one of the coaches said they have the upper and the lower gym there, and they'll have 4 or 5 classes in one gym at the same time the other gym has 4 or 5 classes in it. That too didn't even sound like it was enough for
guess
all
we
of
really
those
do
kids
need-
there.
We call that chaos.
The gym space
Organized
for this
chaos.
campus here. In that the other campus is basically close to that other gym, so there wouldn't be so much of a distance, you know what I'm saying? Make it convenient for the students.
Can I say something about the stairways?
Yes.
Because we have stairways at the high school, and they're these big platform areas where the idea was teachers would take their kids out and sit out there in those spaces, and I don't know that that's ever happened over there. So I would.
I was there and saw a band practice. They use those tiers for a band practice and choral practice. I've been there to watch that. A lot of times
How
it's
could that-
just for like a breakout. Students get together to sit there and work on homework together. So I've seen a lot of individual use, but I haven't seen a class move out there to do that. But
Right, so
yeah,
I just wonder if that space is utilized, or if it would have been better to have storage space for that, because everybody's always looking for more storage space. Anyway, it's just a thought.
And that's what I'm looking at.
Just a
That's
smaller
wasted
classroom for
space. Yep.
pull-outs
Yes.
or one-on-one, whatever it may be.
But one of my thoughts about these intermediate spaces is they're a good place to wait to be picked up, or after school to stay here and have after school activities, because could be an open space for waiting or for special functions and things like that. So but we'll look at that and get feedback about how those spaces are used. Is that something that the teachers would use?
Right, that's where we definitely need those focus groups and listen to the teachers.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, I'm still at the 10,000 view.
Okay.
7th and 8th grade building, we've got approximately 1,100 kids, so it's a 2-story. Got it. 6th grade campus, we're about 600 kids. It's a 1-story. Got it. We spoke about gymnasium and shelter. So the gymnasium, I'm assuming, is going to be like a basketball court, and it's going to have bleachers. And then when you say a shelter building, is that like a tornado shelter? Is that a bulletproof shelter? What is that? Help me understand what a shelter. What's that thought line?
Storm shelter's got to be equal to a FEMA safe room.
Okay, yeah. Okay, just want to make sure I'm along that process.
Yep.
Okay, so, and I understand we're learning. This is a school. So the first function should be teaching our children how to read, write, and understand. Critical. Ooh, here's a hot topic. Critical thinking. So, with that being said, we have basketball games, we have multiple PE classes, we're walking across campus, we're talking about revamping our schedule, so when we revamp our schedule, and if they only have 3 minutes from 6th grade to get to gym, we need to alter that because that's just not feasible and functional. But then farm to table, great, farm, amazing, play sports, so we'll add an awning, that way they can utilize it throughout winter or rain outside right now. Student pavilion, so we can do outside eating. And then new media. So talk to me, so new media, I'm thinking the library and then specialty building. Help me understand, is that also space that we can put yoga in? Is that another space that we can put a PE class in? Is that space that we're utilizing for computer lab, or is that the media? Help me understand that.
Yeah, so this space in the corner is designed for the special group functions. That's art room, which are large and sinks and dirty rooms.
Yep.
Choir and music. It's computer labs, computer technologies. And any of those spaces could be adapted to be multiple functions, like for yoga or other things. We have the media center would be like in our mind, again, nobody's designed anything, but in our mind, it's a 2-story space. The media center looks down onto this area where there's computer labs, or there's workstations where teachers can go, or parents can come in and do individual time with students. It's all those things that aren't classrooms, and it's kind of the things that it's East rooms, it's laboratories. For East can use computer labs, part of the East function. So it's spaces that are not classrooms, that are special classrooms. And what they are exactly, they have programs in the ADE of what these spaces are: music, computer technology, and the sizes. But we can identify those however we want to, and whatever those functions are. But those are kind of unique, flexible, named classes that aren't classrooms.
Okay, so coming back again, you said the existing auditorium right now that we have, that's going away.
Yes.
And so that was built for what, 2,100 kids, you said? So that was over space?
1,200.
1,200, okay.
Yeah.
So that goes away, but where do we have our band concerts? Where do we have our choir concert? Where do we have our drama and skit plays? Because, we're starting to bring those activities, electives down from the high school to the junior high, if you will, the middle school now. So we want that to be on their campus because we want to showcase their campus. I enjoy bringing them over to the high school, don't get me wrong, but let's utilize this brand new building. Let's show it off. So where would we hold something like that function?
Yeah, so in our mind, it's in this space here.
Okay.
Because it's public oriented. There's lots of parking in this area. The main entrance is somewhere along this street.
Okay.
This is where the public identifies.
So easy access.
Easy access. Here's administration. Here's this is kind of the front door of the campus. And so those functions where you have a choir function or a band, they happen somehow somewhere in here. Whether if it's this link between the parking lot and the courtyard, that's a large space, like the stair seating, maybe that's where the bleachers are for a performance that otherwise is a space for doing homework or classes go to do. So maybe that space is flexible, that can turn into a performance area. You can bring in a stage, you can have lights there that you can control, and those kind of spaces can adapt into a performance when you need them, but then they go back to being a space that's used for private science fair projects and things like that.
So that's a space that would be large enough for how many parents come to a band concert, would you say?
Well, high school, there's going to be about 500, but
Well,
middle school, I would say
300.
200, 300.
So that
'Cause we're
space is
inviting
large
grandparents.
enough to bring in 200 or 300 parents.
So, and then that also, on that mind concept or piggybacking that, so where do we have we're gathering all of our 7th and 8th grade kids because we need it's not a conference, what is it called?
Assembly.
A pep rally or assembly, thank you. We're having a conference. So we need conference space, so we can get all of our kids in there. So
They wear ties. and they come
utilizing,
in.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So we're utilizing that, but where would we host something?
I would think this
Okay.
is in the
gym.
gymnasium
Okay.
with bleacher seating that is retractable and can
Yeah.
be put out of the way. So I think that occurs here.
Okay, because I mean, we're also having incentives right now. And I know that's not going to be the entire campus, but that's what we want, right? We want everyone to be able to participate in that incentive. So, okay, so I'm just thinking, so incentives and then, all right. And then we've got our Valentine dances. I know we still do things of that
Yeah.
nature.
And that could be in the cafeteria since you've got food and drinks and things. We've got a large floor area in the cafeteria. Those spaces can be used even for band and for dance maybe. That could be remodeled into a performance, the cafetorium like what we're seeing now. So this could be a large student performance place along with this for pep rallies and other things. So I think we need to identify those needs and then find how we can make those.
Utilize the space.
Yeah, and we want them to be flexible so that it's not just we don't use it 3 times a year, which is kind of like the auditorium we have now. Or, we use it for big performances and we use it, but, making stage sets and stuff, it's used every day. But as far as the seats and filling the hall, it's, 3 times a year.
Yeah.
So we would think about making a space that can do those things, but is flexible enough. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I was thinking about how we've already done the elementary schools, like the cafeteria, stages are already there. And that may save expenses if, it's like that, but kids still, but when you have special programs, choir concerts, it's accessible and it's very easy, stages there, no problem.
Yeah.
We could look at not having to bill additionally.
Yeah.
Just
That's
add something just like
That's a good
elementary
point.
schools.
I like that
And that's a
idea.
really good example. Thanks for bringing that up because it's a cafeteria. It's
Right.
an art room. You
Right.
close it off, it's an art space, and then you open up the doors and it's a stage for
Right.
performances and things. So that's the kind of flexibility that we need to build into it
Right.
to get the program elements, addressed, but not have an empty space that's not used all the time. So that's interesting.
So I'm going to get in the weeds for a moment.
You were at 10,000 feet, so
Yeah.
happy.
Okay,
to
but
know
now
that.
I'm coming down, okay?
How far are you going down?
Crashing to the ground.
Yeah, just throw this away.
I don't know if I want to say it.
How did
Take
just
your
say
time.
it? Just say
I mean, obviously, we got a long ways to go to really design.
Yeah, I mean, we're okay. Because I feel like once we get the teacher input, the principal input, the parents' input,
Sure.
so effectively we could also open this up to the community later down the road. I'm thinking the new gym, so we've got, small little community basketball players and whatnot.
Sure.
They need
Sure.
practice space. Yeah, okay, we're good.
Yeah, and you've done this at the high school too. You've opened
Yeah.
up the field and
Yeah.
the track for after-hours activities, and so that's an interesting community school district collaboration.
Yep.
I know that we've had community organizations that rent that auditorium on the middle school campus. I don't know, obviously now we can't have anybody in.
Yeah, the auditorium's been closed for, I think, 3 years.
Yeah, so
But beforehand, yes.
do those community organizations now rent the space at the high school?
See, that's a Brian question. I don't think we utilize our buildings for the community the way that we could and should. But
Way
I
we
think that's
stated
been
we would do, but we don't do.
correct. And of course, we've had COVID, so I mean, we're coming out of the COVID era still. But with that being said, I think that's an opportunity for us to do
Make some money.
later and for us to really market our amazing facilities. But again, we're too.
I do know that on the where the 7th and 8th grade is, up on the 2nd floor, if you could get out on the roof, you can see the skyline of Little Rock. Now, can we build something up there?
We'll just
just-
add that. to,
Sixth grade building is just gonna have one story, so I don't think that's gonna get the view. But the second floor up there, if you could just get out one of those
Ballroom
windows,
show
you
under
can
that.
see.
We want outdoor space.
On the roof.
Well,
on
I
the
think
roof.
the,
We want one of the stars.
you know, to kind of pulls back into 30,000, you know, because we could talk about this all day long. And I think for us is in agreement, do we agree that this is our top priority and this is something that we want to pursue?
Yes.
Because then the next conversation is going to be how do we, after we talk about our second priority, then it's going to be how are we going to pay for it? But I think as I see a bunch of nodding heads that we know this is something
This is a
that our
priority.
community needs, it is our top priority.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. I want to hear what you have to say about Old Main, because in my head, and I'm jumping ahead and I apologize, I do that often. In my head, I'm thinking Old Main needs to be first, because, again, I'm jumping ahead. We've already promised that to the community in 2012. That was part of their marketing strategy. So allow us to come and like close the deal on it, so to say. And then we can also utilize that space of classroom space if we need it regarding the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade transition, in addition to wherever we may, I don't know, whatever we need.
In light of
And-
the bad issue, I have to ditto with that. That we've got to do something about Old Main first.
But I think the middle school and Old Main are definitely the top two.
Yeah.
I definitely
Sure.
say the middle school is a go. I
Yes.
definitely say Old Main is a go. But
Yes.
in my mind,
Yes.
Old Main should come first.
Well, let's,
Because
yeah, we can talk about, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's probably a good segue
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the recommendation of what are we going to do with Old Main?
Yes.
Then I think we can talk about the priority that you all see needs to happen.
But then I'm also thinking consecutively, while we're doing Old Main first and foremost, we're still working on the middle school. The
Yeah.
middle school, we're still getting materials, we're still bringing in, we're finalizing things, we're still, and I don't even know if that's possible. Can we do 2 projects at the same time?
Oh,
Are we?
Well, I think Mr. Testman's our expert, but I think if you saw on that chart, to get funding for that's out another year.
that's,
For Old Main?
yeah, if you look at if you wanted to look at the Old Main project application, now I think this one that you have for the middle school, I think the chances are really, really good.
So we need to pull the
That-
trigger so much.
I'll tell you what, this opportunity doesn't roll around to get this money very,
Well, we need to go
very
for
often.
the money.
Okay.
Well,
Then
if
that's-
it's-
We need to
if
go
it's
with the
here,
money.
then you need to
Money talks.
Okay.
you need to take it. But as far as the Old Main project, if you look at the portrait sheet I have, timeline for that, for the 25-27 biennium, if you wanted to, well, either way, the first part of that process is for me and Dr. Paluski to get together and do your master plan. Include that project within your master plan. And the master plan is due February 1st. Now, your application for that
February
project,
1st next year.
Yeah.
2024.
2024.
2024, is due March 1st, 2024. Now, wrapped up within that application will have to be some rough drawings. Will have to be what kind of project you're going to apply for. And what I think you're going to apply for is called a warm, safe, dry systems replacement project. That's where you go through and you replace all the major components of your building. And it has to be complete. It can't be just we're going to do the first or second floor. It has to be the complete building, or the division will not approve that project. Be it electrical, HVAC, or security. It will be plumbing. It will be roofing, and that is quite a bit of money.
And this also is a historic building.
It,
Did we register Old Main as a historic building? We spoke about that. Okay, so we did follow through on that. Okay.
91 or 92, it's on the registry.
So it's already on the registry. So do
Should-
you get funding because it's on the registry?
You can apply for funding for the exterior. We've gotten the application approved for the exterior of the building and its significance historically. We don't have the interior, it is not on the registry.
Is that a grant or is that a government money or
It's federal, yes ma'am.
it is federal?
Yes.
If I could just maybe make a recommendation in just a thought, because Mr. Testman has a whole, Mr. Testman, Brom has a whole philosophical rendering of what Old Main could look like. Maybe it's good to start there, and then we can go in, do we agree with that? Is that something we want to go forward in a concept? And then we can dig into funding, timelines, all those kinds of things, if that's okay. Because I think having the concept in your head, then it would be, where does that fit in our priority list?
Right.
And then, but I think you can see
Yep.
it's another application process, because the recommendation is that it would be used for space for students. And so therefore, we can apply for funding, state funding, if we use it for space for students, rather than if we were using it for something else in which the district would have to. And so maybe that's a good segue to,
And will you, you came to us with this idea about Old Main, of what to use. Can you introduce us to the Center of Excellence?
yes, I was just going to segue into that. So certainly go ahead.
I was going to say, before we leave the middle school, is there any other property that the North Little Rock School District owns that would accommodate a middle school?
Building a brand new middle school?
Yes.
Donna?
We've looked at, there's nothing that the district owns currently that has, this is 20 acres, 20.1 acres, and there's nothing that the district owns that has that much land. We looked across the area, and we do find some areas that have 20-something acres that are contiguous, but they're multiple owners. And so through our experience years ago, combining schools for like Amboy, for example, that took a year to get all those properties consolidated into one space. So it's a very timely endeavor. And the space that we found is along the, and there are many, there could be others, but the ones that we found were like in the next to was the Amboy neighborhood, and it was enough property, but it didn't have the utilities to this extent. It didn't have the infrastructure to this, because it's along an old corridor, but it doesn't have this kind of infrastructure. So that would be a need to upgrade the infrastructure for this kind of facility in that spot. The other thing is that it was so far out, it wasn't centrally located, and so to relocate an entire campus that's somewhat centrally located, has major arteries that easily feed it to MacArthur, which is off the freeway and is through almost the neighborhood. It didn't seem to be a good fit. We don't have the kind of infrastructure with parking lots that we do, the site lighting. The neighborhood is invested into this campus. We don't have that kind of community support. Not currently. That would have to be built. So we don't have a spot in our mind that we could say we can start next year and build on this spot and be a value, cost-wise, and be a value for the district. And that's our percent. We studied, the value of parking lots and infrastructure and things. So that's kind of our finding.
How much space is there over there where the annex in Poplar Street, that little space that runs along that Poplar Street?
I don't think that would be.
Is that
Now, the
I'm
city
not-
wants that.
the city wants
There's-
that?
So it's my understanding that we're gonna do some swapping, and so some of that
Well,
the city wants, but some of that.
So
Go ahead.
maintenance. The maintenance building in that area
Okay, so up
is
to the ditch.
correct. Everything on the other side would still remain ours, but I'm not sure that that's enough space to build a middle school
But
complex.
that's where Ms. Williams, and again, coming back to 2012, their original plan, Old Main included, that's the baseball field, that's the softball complex, that's the multi-use
Is that where we're
practice
talking about the
space.
aquatic place also?
We
Or in that
spoke
area?
about aquatic, yeah, you take aquatics, and I don't know.
No,
if
I know the
city's gonna
mayor.
do it.
Yeah, the mayor is you know, as part of his half penny. I think
Okay,
the
gotcha.
mayor has that same vision of having an aquatic center in North Little Rock. So that's not something that
That
you know,
will
we
be
have to
responsible.
prioritize. That's
Okay.
part of the mayor's.
Let them
plan.
build and pay that. We're just gonna utilize it. Our
But
swim team
but
needs to
that,
practice.
but that's a good thought, Ms. McLean. How could
Mm-hmm.
that space of what we own? But I don't think that's nearly the size that we would need. It's certainly not 20 acres.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did look at, we have planned the baseball, you know, discus and things over in the Poplar Street area, and that was even a tight fit. And it's multi-levels, it's very hilly, you know, it goes from Poplar down to the freeway. It's got a floodplain that extends almost, you know, to the building. So that would have to be dealt with in some way. So it looks like a large lot, but surprisingly, the floodplain along there is into our property quite a bit. It's like half of it. And so that's just not buildable unless you replace a wetland somewhere, you know, 100 miles away. But yeah, surprisingly, there's a lot of water that goes through there. But
I'm just trying to imagine, how many years did you say it was going to take to do this for the middle school?
yeah, it's a 4-year plan, four-year process, starting with the auditorium, and that can happen anytime. So that can be cut down. You know, that timeline could be 3.5 years. But yeah, it's in order to not have kids in portables, you've got to build something and then move into it, and then build something and then move into it. So that's why the timeline is so long, is because you don't want to spend money for portables that maybe you could solve another way. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Testman, I have a question for you. Why is the funding so good right now, so sweet for the middle school versus Old Main? Why is there a difference in the funding aspects?
Difference in the means values?
Yes, sir, something of the nature.
What you're building at the middle school campus is called a warm, safe, dry space project. That means when the division is partnering with you, they're partnering on the floor, ceiling tile, drywall, all your fixtures. Whenever you're doing a warm, safe, dry systems, it's just replacing those systems. The aesthetics and all the walls and the paint and everything else, that's the district's responsibility. They're only replacing systems. And so that means value is going to be quite a bit lower.
Now, on the funding for the middle school, once we receive it, it doesn't matter if it takes 2 years or 4 years to build it, to complete it.
We locked in though, right?
That's my question. Are we locked in with the money?
Brian, do we keep
If-
the money? Oh, sorry, Testman.
If you rephrase your question again, is it?
So we go with the middle school first because
Yes.
it's prime season
Yes, ma'am.
to get the money. When we get the money, even if it takes us the 4 years to complete it, we still get all of that money.
That is correct.
Okay.
You have 4 years from the date of the funding announcement, and that funding announcement is going to be May 1st, 23. So you have 4 years to complete the project. But there are instances to where the school district, like in yours, if it's a matter of phasing in projects, you can ask for a waiver from the facilities division. And I think that would be granted no problem. If you had some issues, weather, if you had some other logistical issues, you just ask them, and they'll go ahead and extend that. As far as that money being there, it will be there. The state is very generous that they won't increase their funding, but they'll take back any money that you don't want to spend. That means if you save money on a project, let's say they thought it would cost $1 million.
Oh, we're gonna spend money.
Oh, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to make
gonna
sure
spend their money
that
first.
we
It'll
want to
be-
make sure that they don't take the money
No.
because
Right.
it's taking too long to complete the project.
No, it's locked in on that partnership project.
Gotcha.
That is there. And it will not change unless you save money, then that means they save money. Then they'll take some of that money back.
Your look.
Because I know you. I want to be clear that there's some asterisks to that statement,
Okay.
you know.
What are said asterisks?
Come on to the weeds.
May 1st of 23, you get your award,
Mm-hmm.
and as Mr. Testman said, you have 4 years to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Your November of '23. And you're probably not gonna start spending any money until you know that the voters said yes. So we're probably going to lose almost a year. And if this is a 4-year project, then, you know, from the beginning, we're gonna be working with the state to get those extensions and waivers. But as you know, that's not a guarantee that you get a waiver. So just to be clear, you know, there's a deadline to spend the money. This plan being phased in is gonna be at the outer realm of that, and that if the state is reasonable, you know, there's an explanation for phasing it in, but we'll want to get all those waivers and things in place. And if the voters were to say no in November of '23, then you wouldn't be going to them till '24, because you're gonna only have one election per calendar year. And there are instances where schools have to give back their allocation of
So
funding
you don't want to get back
because the voters didn't give them permission, or they ran into a cost overrun. So the answer is correct, there's just some asterisks.
Okay.
And just want to make sure you always know
Thank
what
you
the
for
asterisks are.
saying, because that's I don't want to give back any money, and I don't want to lose any money.
What about with a 4-year project, the cost? Because in 4 years, things may be a lot more than the first year that we started out supplies. So are we locked in somehow with a bid, or how does that work for a 4-year project?
Yeah, those are some weeds we haven't talked with. Part of this, we'll have a construction manager on board. You know, that's kind of the next step. At this 10,000-foot level, the district will engage a contractor to help. And those are kind of things to work out with their expertise on. You know, how do you build a project over a period of time and not, you know, have those inevitable escalate? How do you reduce those inevitable escalations? You know, what are some strategies to deal with that? And that's an expertise that we can bring in and be part of the team, and they can help us navigate those kind of questions.
You need to be sure you're speaking.
Oh, sorry. I need to say that.
Baldwin and Shell, what was the cost of lumber in 2017, 2018? Just hypothetically.
What was the question, sorry?
Cost of lumber?
Speak into it.
There you go, sorry.
I don't know that I could tell you exactly what the lumber cost was. Obviously, the costs have gone up tremendously. There's no doubt about it. Mr. Tessman kind of talked about the cost per square foot. The House Bill 1254 that you're talking about, obviously that's something we've been involved in helping provide cost per square foot for the last 10 years to the legislators to help with this bill. Those costs have gone up. You know, having been on the North Little Rock High School project, I was actually the on-site manager for that one. At the time, I can tell you cost per square foot were exactly the 200 that you talked about. Overall for that project was 200. Most recently, the last few jobs that we've looked at, we are actually doing a junior high currently, middle school currently, I'm sorry, that is closer to the 350 per square foot that you're talking about. So I don't know if I'm answering your question about the lumber. Obviously, all those things come into play, but I did, if I could, I wanted to also answer your question about the cost over 4 years. Again, having done that on the high school, when this design is complete and working with Brom and scoping out the whole project, even though portions may be done at a later date, we would bring subcontractors, our trade partners in and bid the work and lock them in. We would provide them a schedule that says, we're going to work on this phase of the project at this time, we're going to work on this one at this time. They will lock all those prices in so that it will carry you out through the end of the project for everything that's designed.
So the only way we can shorten that time is if we had an alternative to put the 6th grade somewhere. Or would we have to put all 6, 7, and 8 somewhere else?
I think if you had in your way to solve the puzzle is to move one grade off campus or put them somewhere that you have a facility, then that could potentially shorten that timeline by that school. You know, there's still some movement around, and you have to get this built before this can move. But I think we can look at, you know, what's the effect of relocating one grade or 7th, 8th grade to another facility, how does that change this calculus? So I think that's, that would help. It would have to help.
If we had a miracle and we could move the 7, 8 somewhere, does that, and it reduces the number of years, does that help with cost at all? Or would it help with cost, reduce cost?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I mean, I guess most simplistic terms, being on that project, the superintendent's got to oversee that project. Now, the question is, do you have that staff, that on-site staff, to manage the work over 4 years, or can you have that staff over 2 years? So in simple terms, yes, there is some cost savings for that, yes. And and even subcontractors could potentially handle both scopes of work simultaneously. Larger scope of work to them might mean a smaller margin that they would request to be competitive for the work.
And you said that was House Bill, what was it again?
1254.
1254, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me go and read that.
Yeah, and part of our thinking with the middle school was, construction projects are painful. They're difficult, they're time consuming, and how do we make that the least amount? What's the least amount of pain and suffering that we have to endure for our parents and teachers and kids? That was kind of our priority.
Because I was even thinking along, when we were talking about it, yes, it'll be shortened as far as the time frame, but what if a parent has a student in the 6th grade and the 7th grade, or 6th grade and 8th grade, and then now you're dropping off at multiple places, and that becomes a little difficult there, yeah. And some people are already running late in the morning.
It's a tough
Yeah.
it's a tough problem.
But we have
It
options,
is.
so, to kind of all just digest. But I did have a question, or I just kind of want to touch on too, and I know it's down the road, and I know it's a priority as far as with Old Main. And once we can get that funding and everything secured, I mean, yes, we can use some of that as far as classrooms if need be, or for special project rooms. But once we redo that, and it could be another safe area, we can utilize that. But even with that, I mean, we talked about like event spaces, and we just kind of what Maumelle High does, they rent that facility out as far as like their auditorium, and then that can be some type of revenue generating aspect there, and make sure that we have like a good sound system. I remember Mr. Gosser used to be our sound man back in the day. So we can actually have one that really works, and we can utilize that for the community.
So,
All you have to do is go back to Dr. Pelosi's presentation 3 months ago, and he gave us everything that we could possibly do in that building. And that could be used for further discussions rather than repeating this same situation, okay?
and thank you, Ms. Williams. I think that's a good segue to,
Right.
what I'm recommending, and we've talked about this, is that part of, I think, our priority has to be, and we know through our data we've lost 1,500 students in the last 10 years. So to me, our priority has to be, how do we grow enrollment? And one way to do that is through offering programs for kids, niche programs that aren't being offered. So the recommendation with Old Main that we talked about, again, same concept with the middle school. How do we build upon what's successful already and enhance it? We know the Center of Excellence is a successful program. There's about 334 students currently. We know that's housed within the current high school. That creates a set of challenges in and of itself of having 2 schools and 2 principals within the same building. So our recommendation is really to relocate the Center of Excellence and into Old Main. The charter allows for up to nearly 800 students, so we would actually double the enrollment of COE by moving it and then allowing to continue to offer more programs for students that's not currently offered. So I'll turn it over to Brahm of just philosophically. That was the priority. We pitched lots of different things for the community, but I think when we pitched the priority, the space would be well utilized to grow enrollment?
So, Old Main. So it used to be a school building. It was a great old school building. And so what better way to maintain Old Main and to bring life back into Old Main than to make it a school again? And so the Center of Excellence has the 350 students, and they could enlarge up to 700 students. That's kind of their goal, and that's really the sweet spot for Old Main. That's kind of the number of occupants that is ideal for Old Main. So we're looking at Old Main as a school again, the Center of Excellence. So just to familiarize, here's Old Main. We've got the high school campus all around it. The first floor, we'd keep the lobby and entry the same. It's a historic nature, so keep that the way it is. Keep the hallways the same, bring them back maybe to the elegance of the historic nature, and the stairways all stay the same. And we would, this was on the first floor, this was the administration wing, so we'd kind of keep that function on this side, do special education on this side. In the front corners, those would be seminar conference rooms, kind of a flex space, and then in the back would be multi-purpose rooms, your special reading rooms or your special projects rooms. And then one interesting thing that we're wanting to introduce in kind of this old building and new functions, the Center of Excellence is all about technology and pushing that envelope and learning about what can be in the future. And so we would take this centerpiece, which is now the mezzanine and an unused space up above, and make that the media center. It becomes kind of the spine of this building. It becomes like all the kids there are technology driven, and so the one thing they have in common is this multimedia element, and so this becomes a common spine for this. So this is the kind of the philosophy that we're talking about. So the second level, similar things. We have core classrooms along the front. Very little wall movements. They function as they always had. And then we have flex spaces on the front corners that can be conference, can be breakout, still keeping with the same footprint and walls. So very little wall demolition and relocation, which saves money. And then in the corners, this could be the science labs. They need fume hoods and things to go out the roof, and so there's nothing above this. There's no rooms above this, and so that these can be the labs and the things with needs ventilation and be concealed, because we don't want things poking out of this historic building. And again, you can see the media commons as a common spine that's common to all students and to all the floors. And these are some examples. You've got them in your handout of what that space to us looks like. And so it's a glassed area, and you can overlook into this auditorium. It's a collaborative space, broken out into small areas and larger areas. It's a media center where you can plug into computers and do presentations for groups. So it's a very flexible space, but it ties the building back to its roots. So it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of high technology and the historic nature of the building. And I think that's what appeals to us, that Old Main offers this kind of juxtaposition. I think it would be interesting to the kids and to the parents looking for places for their kids to go to school also. On the third floor, it's basically just core classroom space. Again, there's a student lounge, and then this commons media center that's common throughout again. You can see down below, these are the roofs of the second floor where you can make those penetrations for the labs and things. So again, keeping the similar layout, keeping the functions of those rooms the same. And then the basement is where we have the heavy lifting. This is where the technology and computer sciences occur. So they've got large equipment. And then engineering is in this back one where they may have lathes or some large pieces of equipment. And being on a little bit below grade, it's 7 feet below grade, it has access to loading docks and to get that large equipment in and out. Because I know they have special projects where they need like an overhead cooling door to get stuff in and out. And we've got a loading dock in areas back here that could be transformed to become that loading dock. We, in one life of this idea, we were using this as the IT technology location. So we've kind of thought through how to get a loading dock in there with overhead so materials can come in and out. We'd still do that same kind of thing with this. So engineering, technology, and computer. This is building support. That's under this. There's nothing going on there. Then health and science. So this is biology, this biomedical, nursing, veterinary. So all this occurs in this area because the spaces are larger. There's larger places for beds and labs and things. And then health science, again, is on this side. And again, that common thread of the media center going through all of the spaces. And then this space is the existing cafeteria. And what we would propose for that is this is a community partnership space. I know we've talked with Pulaski Tech at one time about a hospitality course. And so something similar to that. This could be a community could use this. It could be a flexible space. People could rent it out even, or it could be opened up, or it could be a collaboration with community entities like Pulaski Tech or like a repair shop or something like this that could use this space as a common element to both the district and to the community.
I like that. So with that space right there, my immediate thoughts is, after prom, we don't have after prom anymore because we don't have the space.
Oh,
so we
yeah.
could utilize that for after prom, bring it back.
Yeah.
And then we also need space for like senior breakfast or senior.
So we don't have to rent out
Right.
facility.
Right. So again,
Save money.
so we're going to incorporate Old Main
Yeah.
because why not bring that history?
Yeah,
So okay.
I like that. I like that.
Just
And
making sure.
And they were
That's nice.
the years ago when we were functioning this building, they talked about what is it called, the alumni association
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
They needed a place to go.
Oh,
so here too.
yeah.
And you'd also have
Wildcat Foundation, all that.
you'd also have the auditorium too, and the stage as a usable space that Center of Excellence could use for presentations, for bringing in other groups to share ideas. It could be a real public space as well. And then
Hey, Brum, Mr. Testman just reminded me that we'll probably have to have a safe space
In the safe room.
Okay.
Due to that renovation, and I would check with the state fire marshal to make sure, but I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that it's gonna
We would
require
have to.
It would be required either separate or in addition to it, just as long as it's accessible within the.
Okay. Yeah,
Is that
that's
something the cafeteria will be able to dualize?
Well, we'll just have to see as we.
Yeah.
There are some cafeterias that are that way. I've seen one, I think it's West Side Cafeteria, Heber Springs, that they incorporated a safe room there.
Yeah, this is largely underground. It's kind of built
That's what I was
inside the hill.
Because it's already kind of
Right.
Yeah.
utilized as that safe
Fortified.
space anyway,
Yeah.
right?
There are glass windows on this side of the courtyard, but there are ways to put things in front of and make it into a safe space. But that's an interesting question. There's some allowances and some variances within the code to what you've got to do. So that'll be something that we work out with the fire marshal and the state fire marshal to find out what's going to be required here. And also feasibility is a thing. If something isn't feasible, then you often get a variance for that. And so existing building on the historic register, we're limited on what we can do to the outside to make it fortified. All that would have to occur inside. And so we've got columns and structure and stuff. So there's a lot of weeds to ask about. So I'm not sure the answer yet, but I do appreciate needing a safe room for these kids as well as what we're doing in the middle school. So that's going to be a question that we need to answer.
So again, because we're in the weeds and it's a historical building, what about an elevator? Because I'm thinking we need to build this for Andrew.
you know, we were just at 7th and 8th grade campus and we had Andrew, so,
Accessibility.
yeah.
Yeah.
I need
ADA
Andrew to be able to get into the COE if he wants to.
Sure.
So how do we
Yeah.
accomplish that?
My thought is with this spine, with this media center spine, there is an elevator here, but it only goes to the towers. It doesn't go down to the
Right.
cafeteria. You have to go to the cafeteria and then take a lift down to the,
Right.
so that's trouble. So what if we, in this media center spine that we're creating, that becomes a vertical circulation piece too?
Can we make sure that elevator is large enough for, like a cargo size elevator, not a 4-person elevator?
Yeah, once you get over 4 stories, you have to have a
Large
gurney,
space.
a gurney has to go in there.
Yeah,
So,
yes,
yeah, we'll have to, and we can absolutely oversize that, because you're gonna be putting materials up and down, and with the Center of Excellence, you're dealing with not just books and paper, you're dealing with projects and things, so.
I'd like to ask about the media spine, because I was the media specialist at the East Campus, which is the 7th and 8th grade building, and we had an upstairs and a downstairs, and one media specialist couldn't monitor the up and the down, and so we ended up moving all the books down so that students could be monitored. Then we turned the upstairs into a space for teachers. So I'm just trying to think of, this would be 3 floors, because you're talking about at the ground level, the first floor and the second floor. I'm assuming you're talking about stairs in these spaces. And I don't know who would be monitoring that space on
Yeah.
each of those floors.
And those
So-
are things, how do you program these floors? How are you able to do this?
I don't know if you're talking about, or if we're looking about an actual library in there, or if the kids are going to be going back over to the library in the new building. I don't know how that would work, and that's probably down in the weeds somewhere
Yeah.
that we'd have to figure out.
We have, at the high school, we have a library that has books, and has a librarian behind the
It's
counter.
just one level, too.
It's just one level, but we have media spaces peppered throughout and that's why we have the large stairs, is because they required more media size, but they allowed us to put those in all the wings. And so at the top of those learning stairs, that area is considered a media space, because it has a board, it has technology. There are some book carousels out there. So in that kind of vein, where you have a traditional library with books and a circulation desk, and then the other ones become like different breakout
Yeah,
spaces.
but I'm just trying to imagine this
Yeah.
3-level space that
Yeah.
you're presenting here,
Mhm.
and what would be in those 3 spaces, and who would be monitoring those 3 spaces.
Yeah,
So.
and also often, they're associated with those classrooms on that level, and so maybe that teacher, uses that media space on that level, and they go to there as a
Yeah,
class.
I mean, I don't know if there'd be a media specialist in this space or not. I don't even know if
Well,
the
and again-
COE
Yeah.
has a media specialist. I don't think they do.
And, similar to the middle school project, if this is, the will of the board, we go down this road, then a lot of focus group questions with staff, with families,
Right.
to get to that granular level of what specifically is the space going to be, how are we going to staff it, those kinds of things.
Right.
So that brings me, I guess, that would be a question for you, Dr. P. What's your vision for using this COE's current space?
Yeah, great question. So again, if we're driven by, part of our challenge is to grow enrollment, this allows the high school to grow another 350 students. So we could almost, between this project, grow nearly 1,000 students. And as we roll out career academies and we have that focus, that just allows them to offer more by utilizing that space. And then it, separates them from 2 buildings, and sometimes that there's a challenge there of, 2 principals in the same building and trying to coordinate things. It helps that as well, but that would be the long-term vision, is to grow enrollment there as well.
And then the last little nugget with Old Main that we're most excited about is it's called, what do you do with the tower? That tower, the upper level is the best space in North Little Rock. I mean, it's absolutely the best space in the district.
That's where we want to view the sky from.
That's the tower. That's where you want to go.
This is pretty cool.
So, you know, we want this to be, it's a special place, and we want to showcase this place. But what do you do with it? Well, it's not big enough to be a classroom. It's not accessible enough to be a classroom. And so we had the idea, James, I think, had the idea of making it a robotics arena, like a BattleBot place. And so the kids would, so here's an image of what that looks like. You may have seen it on TV with all these the robots battling things. And it's big enough that you can have like 2 of those areas, and you can stand around and watch. And other schools can come here and compete in our little special space, you know, the best space in North Little Rock. And that could be really a neat, jewel, exciting draw for parents and for kids. Hey, they've got a BattleBot arena in the tower. You know what an
You're
interesting
the only
thing.
one in Arkansas.
Only one.
Are you saying battle bot?
Yes.
BattleBot,
A
yeah.
battle
You know where they
bot.
compete, they'll build robots.
You have to build your robot, and then you compete your robot against others.
How many square feet are in that space?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure. I'm not sure right offhand. Maybe 800 or 900.
It's not a lot.
It's probably about half of this room.
It's pretty good size. I mean, still.
It was enough that the kids used to sneak up there to smoke.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now what we could do is, like, this is the BattleBot arena. You'll have like flames and spark, and probably not, but lasers and smoke, and so at night they could have things, and you could see this all this going on upstairs. You could see activity in the windows, and it could be a really exciting, fun place to do it. So this was the most interesting spot in Old Main.
I like it.
This is an interesting thing.
Can y'all make that bat-proof, please?
Okay. Well, that's the 30,000-foot view of a recommendation for
I would
Old
say-
Main.
So for funding, when it comes to funding, middle school needs to be first because we're at that sweet spot.
And we've already applied,
we've
and we're
already
getting
applied,
queued
we've
up
already started
for
the process.
funding, correct.
So, and that's a 4-year project. So Old Main, we won't even start the process until 2024. That's what I'm reading.
No, we'll start it with your master plan this year. By September, getting it started. I mean,
Right.
And we'll submit some preliminary drawings, which most of the time do not match exactly to what you're going to build. Or what
Okay.
you're gonna do. Well, this is system renovation, so there really isn't that much flexibility in that. It should be easy to put out. But that'll be due March 1st of 2024. Excuse me if I get my years all mixed up. What year is this?
2023.
Okay,
So next year.
2023. I work in like so many bienniums, so it always. So March 1st, 2024, we will submit the plan. We'll wait, and it's all out on this sheet right here.
Right.
Uh,
So I'm looking for overlap between the middle school and Old Main is what I'm trying to visualize right now. Is there anywhere that they will overlap
Oh, yeah.
if we needed the space that we can utilize to shift students if we needed to?
Depends on how you phase in the projects, or from there to over here, and how fast you can get jobs done here. You're not going to start. You could potentially start the main project if it was approved, funded, and everything by, if you applied for it first part of the biennium, May 1st, 2025.
You're talking about the main project for
For
Old
Old
Main?
Main, for Old
Okay,
Main.
okay.
But did you say the money, Mr. Beardsley? Mr.
Yeah,
Beardsley?
we're gonna need to know the asterisks also. That's why I'm inquiring, because we're
All right.
overlaying.
So
but-
let's play the asterisk game for just a minute. Because
Okay.
Ms. Dot has told me I have 6 minutes. Because I know that face, we're not going past 10:30. So I'm going to do my whole thing in about 2 minutes. You're taking all of this that we're talking about, and you're going to hold it very loosely in your hand. Because this legislative session is unlike any other. And so many of the things that have been referenced this morning are not resolved. Other than, I think you need a new middle school, and you want to do something at Old Main. I think that, the administration's trying to get the board to say, are those the 2 priorities?
Yes.
If they
Yes.
are,
Yep.
then as these loosely held things come into focus, we know the direction from the board to bring back information to you to make decisions.
Thank you.
So the things that we're holding loosely that I think will come out of this session are they going to change how much funding that they give school districts on approved projects? Well, there's a bill out there that says you need to fund the schools on what the winning bid is. And if that's $400 a square foot and the state's percentage is 40%, you need to give them that. You can't cap it at 200. Here's the negative of that. If the state has $100 million for projects and they don't put any more money into it each year, and now the schools at the highest on the list get their percentage on $400, that means fewer school districts will get money. So it's a positive and a negative unless the state puts more money into it. We're waiting for that to be resolved. There's this new requirement both the guys have referenced that every facility needs a warm, safe, and dry, a safe room to go to. Well, maybe that's $500 a square foot to fortify the gym at the new middle school. And is the state going to partner with that on the real cost? Or not? And there's already a group that's asking for that requirement to be waived because it's going to be too expensive. So we're holding that lightly. We have not gotten to teacher salaries yet, but there's, the district has been looking at how do we increase revenue to bring our salary up. Well, if the state suddenly brings you up to $50,000, is that sufficient for what the board wanted to achieve, or was part of what you were trying to differentiate yourself is we want to be above the state minimum because we're trying to attract the best teachers. So, and how is the state going to fund that? If it's on a per student basis and your number of students go down because they now allow vouchers, then maybe you really don't get enough funding to get to 50,000. You're going to have to come out of pocket. So all of those things we're holding real loose with lots of asterisks. But kind of in theory, our kind of path for this is let this session play out, see what the laws are, which ones benefit the school district, which ones are maybe not in your favor. Then May 1st of this year, you're going to know on the middle school the state's partnership amount. Now, you're not going to have bid it out yet, but you'll know, hopefully, their part of it. And then this summer, we'll keep having these meetings and talk about, are those still the two priorities? Here's now the new landscape, and here's what we would have to do to come up with our part of the new middle school in Old Main. Here's what we have to do if we want to do anything different on salaries. And this summer, you're not going to be on break, school board. You get to come deal and work with us and talk about what's coming, because by the end of August, the board, if you're ready to, would need to be making its decision about what's going to be on the November ballot, because you're required to give the voters 60 days notice, which will happen in September, of what's going to be on the November ballot. And if you're not ready to make that decision, then we would defer the election until 2024. But that asterisk we were talking about on Daryl's part of, if you find out May 1st of 23 that you've got money, then you're on the clock. And so you've got to be moving forward. And to your question about can we do both projects simultaneously, the middle school, if we moved with all haste, would not be done May 1st of 25 when you found out about Old Main.
Right.
So you theoretically could have both going, or you could delay Old Main 1 year if you need to move the 6th grades over for some efficiency. But there are lots of unknowns, and that's why we kind of having this ongoing conversation about, are we moving in the right direction? Administration's giving you lots of great information about where they want to go. Are you on board? And then as things come clear, there'll be more action steps, starting this summer.
Very good.
So that leaves me 1 minute, Ms. Williams.
Very good. Question?
I have a question for Baldwin Shell. I'm back to if we were only building 2 years, and you said there would be a savings. What kind of percent? Are we talking 1% saving, 10%? Ball?
I honestly don't know that I could give you a number. I mean, there's a lot that plays into that, how you phase that, where we would need to go, because there's things that come into play, as you know, we dealt with. Again, I go back to the high school. We've got to have areas to lay down for work, how that impacts you from parking areas, because we've got to place materials. how we access those and how it affects the time. There's lots of parts and pieces that come into play, but from a management side, I would say let's just take a superintendent and an on-site project manager. Over the course of a couple of years, you're easily talking in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 potentially. So I mean, it's that's just your management, but we've got things as it relates to facilities for construction trailers, for all the way down to the fencing and everything that you're putting around the job site for that. All those could be, that rent time could be reduced because of that.
Thank you.
Okay, question?
I wanted more
Mr.
than that savings.
Oh,
Mr. Beardsley, I'm sorry.
question? Oh,
Ma-
I want to say to you, Brian,
Yes, ma'am.
when we went to New Orleans, and it's always good to make these trips for board members to see, but there was a school. This project is really minor, and that we could really, I think this is something we can go forth with, because this school even had Burger King, everything. It was a whole school, was like a city. And if we can start off on a project like this for our schools, and Dr. Beluska was paying very close attention, because it was just so phenomenal. It was unbelievable. And it all came out of the COE, and those kids were welding, doing everything, the engineers, the nurses, the hairstylists, the robot people. And to us, this is a tremendous small version of what we can really do to make it even greater than what it is now. And I thank you really, Taggart, for doing this, but you would have had to see it to be impressive, to feel that we need to move forward, because it is possible. And this is just on a small scale. But when you go to a high school campus and you see, it's a city within the building, because they had so much to offer the students. And as Dr. Paluski has always stated, I think this would have, that child who's not academically going to college, but at least will have some kind of occupation when they leave this building, and give us more money for the district too, because perhaps other students will come to see what we're offering. So thank you,
And
Dr.
Ms. Williams, that's a good point. And in the Arkansas Learns legislation, there is proposal for a dual graduation, I don't say certificates, dual diplomas, excuse me. One, which what we see as the future, is in our vision of future ready, that a child that's not going directly into college, that's going directly into the workforce, that's what the COE is all about. And this allows us that opportunity to expand our enrollment, our program offering, and put students first in line in jobs upon graduation. So there's some good timing here,
Right.
I think, for all of it. But I do just, Mr. Beardsley, to be clear to the public and to everyone, in order to accomplish this in the big picture, we would have to go for a millage.
Yes. So I think we've looked at, for the district to fund, its portion would be about $33.5 million. And the district would require approximately a 2.6 mil increase in order to come up with its part to issue enough bonds to net out $33.5 million. And that would be separate from if the board also made the decision prior to November that you needed an increase for operations, for salaries, something that I know the board has spent a lot of time talking about, and just is going to have to wait to see what happens with the legislation. So really, it's two different things. We'd be talking to the voters about it on the November ballot potentially. One is a 2.6 mil increase to support all the construction that has already been presented in this meeting, and the other would be, is there a millage increase necessary to meet the salary requirements, or that the board wants to put in place in the future. One of the things that I previously shared with a few of you, and I'm just going to say it out loud since this is being recorded, is what would a 2.6 mil increase cost the average homeowner in North Little Rock? So I'm going to give that to you two ways. There's a handout that was on your place when you came in. The top chart shows that if your home is worth $100,000, you assess it 20%, so it's on the tax books for $20,000, and currently you're paying $966 a year, which is the 48.3 mills the voters have approved for the school district. If we were to go up 2.6 mills, that would mean an annual increase of to $1,018, which is a difference of $52 per year, or $4.33 per month. I've also included, just for reference, the blue line is if your home is $150,000, and the green line is if your home is $170,000. Depending on which resource you use, the average home in North Little Rock is somewhere between $150,000 and $170,000. So your average homeowner is looking about a $7 a month increase in order to fund all the projects that we're talking about. For those that have $1 million home, you can just take the orange line and multiply it by $10. So if you have $1 million home in North Little Rock, it's a $520 a year increase, or $43.30 a month. Same for businesses, same for vehicles, anything that has a tag on it. And so we don't take that lightly, asking people to come out of their pockets to do something else to support the school district. And we want to go ahead and start getting that information out, so people know, as we're talking about new projects, that there is a price tag attached with that, and that it would require voter approval to move forward with a new middle school and renovating Old Main and some of the other projects that Mr. Brown shared at the very beginning of the meeting.
So let me ask you, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's on you.
Let me ask you this, thank you. With school choice that we have right now, we've got children that come from England, Scott, Sherwood, Jacksonville, which is great. We want those children. Will that affect the homeowners in those cities with the millage that we're trying to gain?
So the short answer to that is no. If you live in Sherwood and you're in Pulaski County Special School District and you school choice into North Little Rock, the Sherwood resident still pays taxes to Pulaski County School District. The state gives you the $7,200, the foundation amount for the child, but any of the additional millage increases are not borne by people who reside outside of North Little Rock School District.
So again, for clarity reasons, so if my home is worth $100,000, I'm going to pay millage on it for the increase, and then if my vehicle is worth $25,000, I'm going to pay a millage increase on it. And what else was there?
Basically, anything that you have a tag on is personal property. So if you have an RV,
So
a
when I go and
motorcycle,
assess,
a boat, anything you
everything I'm
assess
assessing,
pays North Little Rock School District tax. If you are a business, then you pay it on the value of your building and the value of your inventory. So like a car dealership has lots of expensive inventory.
Sure.
They tend to pay a lot. If you're a small boutique store, you just pay it on the inventory that is in your store plus the building if you own it.
So what's our I'm sorry.
I see.
What's our timeline as far as assuring that we can get it on the November ballot?
So there is a 60-day prior to the election requirement that you publish in your local newspaper what's going to be on the ballot. And you actually basically publish a draft of the ballot. And so we would say that the board at its August regular meeting would make the decision no later than that, so that you could publish it and it would be in the newspaper 60 days beforehand. So this summer will be a lot of meetings as the legislative session finishes to bring clarity to a lot of these unknowns.
I'm not a marketing person, okay? But I would like to say this. We just lost a tax for library, okay? And when we're talking about building, we just got out of that. And this is why delays in building schools, that we would have to perhaps look at 24, being honest, to let this kind of tax base pass, you know, because most of this city is encompassed with senior citizens, and they, every penny is sort of, not that they're against taxes, but they, you know, the mindset. And so if it's a delay, and the board would have to decide this, that if we're to go forward with this and go ahead and ask for it now, you said sign the paperwork by September, or do we need some patience? You know, we have to really be objective. Is it ready? Is this the time right now? Because before we do that, Dr. Paluski, our PR person, we're gonna have to be showing people what, you know, what we're trying to do. And we just can't say, well, September we're gonna sign it in November. We can't do that. We really got to market and show them what we need. You know, everybody, when we built these schools in 2012, we had to show them what the problem was and is. And I think that's what we're gonna have to do before we even consider trying to sign something in September, and when we really need to be showing the community, even when we have our school board meeting, this presentations, and showing them, because otherwise, if they don't see it, they don't understand it. So I'm
Sure.
asking you, go back to you, Mr. Beardsley. I know you talked about, I know we need the money, I know we need the taxes, but it's a process. And then people are saying, well, you know, we can go ahead and, no, you can't. They got to see what we're doing in Old Main. You know, that's the top priority in here, that they want to see what you're doing, where we're going. And we just got to do some strong marketing, I think, before, well, that's my personal feeling, before we can really talk about a tax-based period.
Would it be all right if I give her an alternate timeline?
Sure.
So there are the advantage of moving forward this year. There are two things that come to mind just for the board to consider. One is that you're on the clock starting May 1st of 2023 on middle school.
Okay.
And so when you defer any decision to 24, you know, now your four-year window is not now 3 years. Doesn't mean you can't get a waiver, but you are using a year up of your 4-year allotment to get the project completed. The second thing is that your regular election for 2023 is in November. And it just so happens that in 2023, there are no other questions on the ballot. And so your message, if we're able to say it loudly and clearly, is not competing with any other campaigns that are going on for people running for office. If the district prefers to defer the question till 24, then you're going to either have a February of 24 special election, or you're going to have a May of 24 special election. And May happens to be the presidential primary.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to make sure that amidst all the noise that is out there of the presidential run, that you're clearly getting people's attention for what you're asking them for. And if you prefer to wait till November, your regular election, then that's a full presidential election, and you're going to be competing against all of that noise to make sure people know what's going on at North Little Rock. And it very well may be that this summer the board comes back and says, it took so long to get clarity on all these other things, we're not comfortable, and you'll wait. But there are positive and negatives with both 23 and 24.
Okay.
And Ms. Williams, I think to your point, obviously next week I'll be bringing a proposal that is part of our district transformation. That'll be kind of the first view into the public, but you know, behind that is our whole strategic plan, the large vision about being future ready, which I think that we worked on in June.
Right.
That sets the stage on where we're going as an entire district, marketing the long-term vision. Question, Mr. Beardsley, in between that, is there anything that would prohibit us from sending a survey out to our community to see if they have an appetite for an increase as another piece of community data and input to inform the board as we're inching our way along? Is that allowable? Is that something we?
So, you know, I can't give you legal advice because I'm not an attorney.
That's pretty good.
Let me put my asterisk on there. But, you know,
Asterisk number
generally,
999.
it's the administration and school board's whole job to represent the community. So polling the community for what do you think about this issue? What is your appetite for different things is wholly appropriate, and I would consider normal business. There is a bill that's out there that severely restricts what school employees and school board members can do and what resources can be spent. But even in, I think, the reading of that bill, what you're talking about would be appropriate. You're not asking people to vote yes. You're not trying to influence anything.
Okay.
You're soliciting feedback. You tell us, community, do we have the priorities right?
That's right.
If this requires a tax increase, is it immediately a no-go? Here's information. I think as long as you're staying informational, that you're doing a great job of getting feedback.
Mr. Tillman, can I ask him a question?
Of course you can.
Well, if we are slow about, our past, I just want to know, where do we stand now? You heard what he said, so what is your statement on it?
As far as the millage?
Yes.
Oh, I'm ignorant on millages.
Is it money, or are we rushed? What do we need to do? Because I heard you talking about it's time. You know what I'm saying, and
I can give you what I've experienced in the past with the timeline and the waivers that have been accepted. The first hard timeline we'll have from May 1st is 18 months for the district to sign what they call, is called beginning construction, all right? Let's say you're wanting to do, you need to extend that timeline to test your millage grounds. You have 18 months to get your contract, which is, where is it there?
11/1/24.
11, is it on there? Yeah,
okay.
11/1/24. We can ask for a waiver, but beginning construction is accepted by the facilities division as just having a contract signed with either your architect or your construction manager. So that would clear the first hurdle of getting your money pulled back by the state. Okay, and then the state is rather reasonable whenever they know a district is preparing for a millage, because they know how hard it is, at least the guys at the division are. So that comes to, the only other timeline you have is 4 years from the date of funding, which is, that would be, approved construction begin, practically, so that'd be what? May 1st, 29. And you can even get that extended by waiver. I worked at the division for a total of about 4 or 5 years. So I know what has been done in precedence, and I know what's acceptable, and I know that there are good-hearted people who work with districts that really need the help. So if you're going for a millage, they understand that.
Okay, thank you. Both of you, I had your hand up. Who had it up first?
She did.
What I was gonna ask, and I always try to look for cost-effective ways, and I am pretty savvy as it relates to the marketing aspect, but this is probably a good time to utilize like those neighborhood associations to probably go and, have you all to present that information and to educate folks about the millage and educate them as far as what information is out there, and then, give them something like this so they can have to try to use as a reference sheet, and then that way they can use that to spread amongst their neighbors to try to kind of gain some traction on that. And then, of course, TV, radio.
Okay.
After you speak to those individuals, and they usually have those once a month meetings, so that could be a start there as far as starting those conversations.
Ms. Valerie?
As I understand it, the bill that could increase funding from 200 a square foot or whatever, it's currently 200 to 300 perhaps a square foot.
It would go to the exact construction means value of national construction means value is what they're aiming for. So, like he had said, it's about $350 right now. Let's say that's what it is. Then that's what it would be. That'd be $150 more
per square foot.
Yeah, that you would be partnered on by the state.
So can we see some numbers on what that would do if we got that? I know it's an if right now, but what would our numbers look like at that point on what we would get from the state?
It's on this sheet that I have that I passed out, and I estimated that. It's the landscape sheet. It's on that chart, the last line, Arch Ford assessment. I actually put in $350. That would make your qualified cost be 38 million instead of the original 22 million, because the means value has increased. So does the actual qualified cost. So that would bring it to, and also your wealth index decreased by 12%, which means now you're getting more of a state share. You're having to pay for less of the project. So I'm estimating your state share to be about 26 million, and the district share to be 12 million, which is a total of 38 million there.
So 38 million, and then we have 54 million in our building fund. No. Do we?
There
That
it is on that
does
sheet.
that include what we were getting from the state or not? That's just us, right?
Valerie, the sheet that Brian
We
just
got
gave you,
this
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Okay.
there's your numbers.
29, the very first number, 29 million
So we've got 29.
on hand now.
But then these other things that you're adding in there, the projected savings, take out that estimated state partnership, and then that leaves what our potential building fund is for the district, correct? So we would take out the 12.2 and the 5, that'd be 17. So if you take 17 from the 54, somebody tell me if I'm doing this right.
Why are we removing the 17? Let me understand that concept.
Well, I'm just trying to see how much we have, because now he's saying if we got the 350, we would get 38 million. Am I correct? Somebody help me.
No, that's the qualified cost is what the division estimates your total project will cost.
And so what do we get?
You would get the state share on that last line, which is 26 million. Oh, wait, yeah. For how much money you would have.
So we're getting 26 million from them.
Not right now, not until.
If it went to 350.
Correct,
Projected.
project.
Right. But in our sheet that Brian just handed out, it's saying
It's using
12.
current rates.
That's the
Because
current
that's
That's
rate.
current.
12, right?
Yes.
Right.
So that's an increase of
14 million.
Work them numbers.
14. So how do we look as far as saying we estimated 58 for the middle school? How would we, somebody do the math for me
So
there.
instead of needing $33.5 million, you would need $14 million less. So it would reduce the millage increase in order to do it, but you'd still need a millage increase.
So we'd still need 14 million.
Valerie, can I ask you, roll back a minute, the library millage that did not get passed, what was that percentage? Do you remember?
I actually don't know. I know we
Which
lost by 30.
1%? You lost by 37 votes.
Yeah.
No. What was the
Low.
millage proposal?
Oh,
What
2.
was that percentage?
2.
Two. So 2% millage just failed, is
Correct.
what I'm asking.
Correct.
Thank you. And we're asking for a 2.6 hypothetically
Mm-hmm.
moving forward.
But it was on a off election cycle too. It was
Right, yeah,
yes, that's what I'm saying. Special elections, and then
absolutely.
because I know some people didn't even know about it.
You are correct. You are
So
correct.
what if we just went, I'm looking here at Mr. Beardsley's, no, that's your sheet. So
So I'm gonna,
how many meals would we need if
so
we,
I'm going to do napkin math and say 1.6.
1.6
But that's
meals?
Just, that's a quick and dirty answer.
Okay, that's all I needed. I just need a ballpark figure there, so we could go down to 1.6 instead of 2.6.
Okay, so I'm going to get us back in the weeds because I'm really good at that. Hypothetically, in the weeds, Beardsley and Tessman, if we did a 3-year snapshot, Okay, so I see what we want as far as our future projects, right? So our 3-year snapshot, 4-year project, if you will, is the new middle school and Old Main. That's what we want, that is what our needs are, that's our immediate, this is what we're doing, this is our priority. So by taking the building fund, by taking the partnership, and that cost of the future projections of those 2 projects only, hypothetically, would we still need the millage increase? By our 3 or 4 year snapshot, and we get all of the apples and all the sweet spots, and everything works again for us, and we've prayed about it, and we've done our rain dance, and everything aligns. Do we still need our millage?
Okay, so are you saying if we take Brian's sheet and we draw a line through everything except for those 2 projects and you eliminate 14 million,
Correct.
then you could do a second, I don't know.
I know, I'm putting you on the spot, and we're in the weeds.
You're in the weeds.
Because here's, so hypothetically, 30,000 view. So if we do a 3-year project game plan, 4-year because that's what it's gonna cost, and everything aligns up, and then we come back later, 4 years down the road, Baldwin and Shell, we come back to you in 4 years and we go, hey guys, guess what? We wanna finish our list out. We wanna make sure, we take line number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and now we wanna start on that. Do we need to come back and talk about that millage at that time? Or is the millage priority right now to get these 2 projects up and off and going and completed? Does that make sense?
Well, we need 73 million to do the middle school and the Old Main, right? So how much do we have if we get that extra 14?
I'm not don't count on extra.
Oh,
Let's not, we're hypothetical in the weeds. We're not even gonna,
okay.
we're not
I
gonna
wanna
bank on
count on the 14,
eggs.
okay.
We're only counting the chickens.
So are we saying, we're changing Valerie's point that we don't get the extra 14 million from
Well,
the
if
state?
that's the sweet spot though, right? If we get the extra, Mr. Testman?
That's
Oh, it
what
is.
it's looking like.
That's the
because
sweet
it'll-
spot, because that will help increase.
But what
How much
if?
you pay for what cost has already risen.
Yeah.
Right now, the cost is your
Right.
phase is risen, your
But what
funding
if?
has stayed the same.
Right,
All that's gonna do is bring you up a little bit to where the actual costs are today.
okay.
So I would say theoretically,
Okay, yep.
if everything fell in your favor and the legislature, the bill was changed and we got more money from the state, and you only did the first 2 projects, we'd be really close to being able to do it without a millage increase.
Okay, I'm just thinking hypothetically, if we go to the voters and we poll the audience,
Right.
and they say, no, we're not doing that, is it possible that we can still accomplish our goals without getting the millage increase, is where my thoughts are right now.
All right, so I've been asked 2 questions. One is to finance the building, the other's for salary increase. So.
Yeah, we didn't even put in
so
salary
leaving-
increase.
Leaving all that aside.
Right.
Theoretically, we would be very close. We'd be within $3 or $4 million, maybe less, if all these things worked out, of not having to have a millage increase and just being able to sort of work through that. The challenge would be the district has no excess funds right now to commit to another debt payment. So we would really want to use your building fund and the future savings and the state and figure out a way to finance it, but we would be getting really close if everything fell your way.
that's with the 350?
If the state started matching at 350
Mhm.
and
If they don't match at 350, we wouldn't be close, would we?
you wouldn't be close to doing it without a millage increase.
Right,
Because you'd be like 12 to
Right.
$14 million short.
right.
We're hitting a moving target. It's until legislation's over, cost-wise, we're hitting a moving target, so.
So at the end of the
You
day,
can hypothesize all day long, but you're not gonna know.
Right, that's true.
this summer, we've gotta make some decisions.
Okay.
And so it goes back to the original is starting to poll the community now. so that can help with the decision come this summer.
Well, I don't think it'd be fair to poll them without proper information out there first.
Yeah, I
Well,
think.
Right.
So do we need the proper information, meaning what the legislature does with this bill? And we need to know what then by, what is it, May, we get,
May 1st.
May 1st,
Would
we
be
get,
the
we know what the state
partnership
says
funding?
they're going to do. So we'd have to wait till May, really, to have the correct data to let the community know.
But meanwhile, we can ask the
No.
community,
That's
Oh.
when I'm
yes.
no.
Well, we might not need a millage if all the ifs happen.
Mr. Beardsley,
Okay.
what
So
would,
why would
But
we
there's
asking
nothing
about them
wrong
if we
with
don't need it?
asking.
Come on, sir.
There's
Miss-
nothing wrong with asking.
Mr. Beardsley,
Okay.
if we were to survey our community, when would be the appropriate time to do that?
Thank
Just
you.
for information? We're just providing information. There's a lot of
That's it.
hypotheticals here.
Right.
But all things equal of what we know.
Well, part of it depends, what do you want to know from them? Are you
Right.
asking them, is the middle school the priority? Are you asking them, is Old Main a priority? Or are you
I think-
asking them, would you be willing to have a tax increase to pay
All-
for these two facilities?
All three.
Correct. I would
As
agree
a
with Dr. Reddish.
taxpayer, all three. I would want to be able to say, have something to say, no, I believe Old Main is a priority. My neighbor may believe the middle school is a priority, or the next neighbor may not think either are a priority. I want to know that. And then I want to know, well, since you say that this is a priority, are you willing to pay for a millage?
I think part of would be from your own communication team. My impression would be after sometime in May, your channel becomes less effective, getting
Okay.
feedback, because as we move to graduation and all those things happening
Summertime.
in summertime, so I think that's sort of out there is you want to do something before then. Now, is there anything better in doing it early March or right when you come back from spring break? I don't know that I know the answer to that. And will we know anything more from the legislature? I don't know. But I would say you would want to do it prior to May 1st.
Question.
I would agree.
When we look at the future projects, is this a part of the millage too, Mr. Beardsley? Like, we see the new middle school, I see that in Old Main, then we want to get rid of the sophomore annex, then the police admit, Octagon. How come they didn't renovate it for us, Dr. P? The city, and then purchase and renovation of new ALE property. I know what you're talking about. That's Rose
That-
City.
That would be the academy, and I
Yeah.
know that, and that's been part of a long-term plan too, that I've talked about numerous times, that we're talking about our most vulnerable students, 6 through 12, and that needs to be revisioned.
Right.
And I think with a new space,
And what I can add, and you, the police and courts building, I thought the courts building was pretty good, but the other that had all asbestos and where the old jail was, I thought you could leave one part and tear the other one down.
yeah, I think our recommendation, Mr. Brown and I, as we've gone through it, that I think it's just best that gets
Okay.
demolished.
Okay, now, and so I guess my question is, this, Mr. Beardsley, would this millage increase take care of all of this? Is this separate funding?
So currently, the 2.6 mils increase would fund all the projects that Mr. Brown has listed on here.
Oh, okay.
Your share of them at the current partnership levels. So if partnership increases, or if you're denied from partnership, or anything happens come May 1st, then that would change. But given the existing lay of the land, 2.6 new mills would fund everything on the district's list of project needs.
Okay, and then, since the city wanna swap with us for the maintenance building, couldn't we get some out of something? Dr. P, like renovation of the building and, that 2 items or something, Mr. Hartwick has been very helpful and I can say good things about him, and I think maybe the board will help us.
He's a great supporter of North Little Rock.
To defray some of this expense that we're looking at. I was
He-
just,
Yes, Mayor Hartwick is a phenomenal supporter of North Little Rock, and we have a great partnership with him and the city to, work things out with this, building such as this building that we're in. So that's an ongoing conversation, but they're very supportive.
I'm just looking how we could eliminate some, debt. But are you good, Brian, Mr. Tillman? Anybody else got any questions? He got one. Bob and Shell, are they gonna build the building? You have to take a bid.
So what's
We
the
just wanna be-
consensus? Do we have to vote in a meeting to start sending out fillers to the community?
I don't think that requires an action by the board for us to just communicate information
Yes.
and get information back.
Yes.
You're not, we know what the collective priorities are here. We're just gonna put that out to the public that these are our priorities. Are they your priorities? And that's what we wanna know.
That's
And
what we wanna
is
know.
there an appetite? If we have to
Yes.
go, is there a, and I think, and this board has been very forward-thinking and always wanting to, like we did with the calendar, to, what does our community say about that? And I think that goes a long way with our community, that we're asking up front for their opinion and ultimately their funding.
That's
So are we
solid.
gonna ask just about the middle school in Old Main in this survey? Are we including anything else on that?
Well, I think that's a great point. I was just sitting here thinking about the same thing. If these are our priorities, I don't see any reason why we can't say, these are the board's priorities in priority order. What's your top three? And maybe that's a way to take a look at it. And maybe when we send the survey out, we want to know such things as, do you have a child in the school district? Do you not have a child in the school district? Because we want to know from those folks as well that might be retired, where are they? I think in looking at some of that demographic to say, hey, our parents of students voted overwhelmingly, 90%, but our folks that don't have kids voted overwhelmingly not to. I mean, I think that just helps us with trying to understand, but it gives them a voice as well because they're taxpayers.
I agree.
Excuse me, he wanted to speak.
I just had one question, I think, for Mr. Testman, Mr. Beardsley. When you talk about the additional $14 million potentially for the partnership funding increase, if that's approved as the bill is written, correct me if I'm wrong, it's only for projects moving forward that have not yet been approved. So to get that $14 million, would you have to turn back what you have and reapply into the new biennium to try to take advantage of that $14 million?
Are you talking about this project in particular?
Yes.
No, it would be established, the 23-25 biennium. I
Oh, it
believe
hasn't been,
that
it hasn't been approved yet?
No.
Okay,
No,
okay.
no, not yet, no. It's still, I think it passed through the Senate, and it's on the House side of the committee.
Dr. Paluski? It's on you.
Thank you for that. And I just, for the public, I just want to be clear, and I appreciate, Baldwin and Shell being here and answering some, but we have to go through a process to pick a builder. I'm still learning that process as well. I just didn't want the public to have any kind of perception that, we've already picked a builder. We have to work this through the process to be transparent. But I do appreciate them being here from a construction company to ask, and get perspective on the other side of this. But I just want to be clear, we have to go through the right steps in the process once we determine that we're going to build, just so the public is clear.
Right, very good. Any comments from the board? You tired now?
Not tired. Honestly, I was under the impression that we had already spoken to the public and that these were their priorities. So if we're gonna redo that or do it again, that's fine. I was under the impression that we've already checked that box and that Old Main and middle school was the priority also of the community.
At least certainly since I've been here, I've not seen that. That may have been back when we were building new schools, that
fair.
was a priority.
And that's
But
fair.
I know since I've been here since 2020, we've not put anything out to talk about
Okay.
our building project priorities, but I think it's
You
a
know,
good thing to do.
He had presented this to us, his
Yes.
vision at different, but with different organizations and everything.
Yeah, that was like before
And
I
so
got
after he kind of found out the community, old Maine, and he was
Yes.
able to bring this to us. And so and I thank you for that, for your being proactive in having this report for us. And, Miss, did you have something to say, Miss Valerie?
I love the idea that we're going to send questions out to the community. I totally agree with you, Dr. Redis. And I think that at some point the associations are ones that we can go and speak with also. I think that's great. I'm hoping and praying that that we'll be getting $350 per square foot instead of the other. And if there's that possibility, Ms. Wonkum, that maybe we could do top priorities and not have to ask for a millage. And it's going to be interesting to see what our community has to say to us.
Well,
So,
being acknowledged, we always acknowledge Mr. Tillman. We certainly thank you for your input, and I hope you stay around. We have a position open. And, excuse me. And Dr. Pulaski, thank you always for being proactive in what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Beardsley, thank you for being with us for the past 30 years. And Brian, you have just been there always.
Brom.
We
It's
appreciate
Brom.
you. And Brown, and our mighty man over here. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for all that you've been doing. And I think the board is very supportive. I want to thank Ms. Warren for coming out because Ms. Colquitt wasn't feeling well.
Yes.
And again, Mr. Garza, is always so nice that you didn't have to bring a person here to sort of assist us in what we're trying to do. And we just, I'm going to say this, you know, mix church and state together, but I can say we are blessed to have a superintendent to have the vision that he has, and we thank you personally, Dr. Pulaski.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, our board
And
members.
if there's nothing else, we can be adjourned.
I think are we through, or do we have some more?
No, Mr. Brown, I'll kind of leave it. I think we've kind of covered everything. Obviously, this is not our last workshop as it relates to this. I think we'll get a survey together. We can come back and discuss.
Mr. Tillman has spoken,
Test.
and that's why we ask him
Strange.
everything when we go down the road, Ms. West. That's what we always consider it. Any questions or anything? Ms., I thought you,
Yes, so in conclusion, it's my understanding that we're gonna poll the audience, if you will,
The community about our priorities and what are their priorities.
And then from that aspect, we're gonna come back again to the drawing board, if you will.
Mhm.
And then we're going to ask for the millage at that point, because I'm thinking the timeline, because I'm hearing lots of dates, and I just wanna make sure that
So-
we're doing this appropriately regarding the timeline, that we don't miss any honey spots.
So
sweet spots.
my recommendation would be we'll certainly work with Mr. Beardsley and we'll craft, some kind of survey. What I was hearing him say is I don't think we want to wait. We don't want to survey past April 1st. So in that kind of window, I liked his idea between after spring break and April 1st. Begin that. I think at least at one of our workshops, before we send that survey out, we want you to take a look at it. And we'll present that to you. We can have another at our regular meeting. Doesn't have to be long, but we can kind of bring this back up. We did the heavy lift today. Here's what we're thinking. Get your feedback, and then we'll send that out. Once that's out, have another workshop. These are the results. We'll know a little bit more as we're kind of creeping up to these legislative bills. We'll have more information as we get to the May 1st deadline, and then we're in that window of making a decision about an election.
You kind of have the summer to work on that,
Yeah.
and then kind of driving towards your August regular board meeting.
And when is the legislators out?
I think they just gave themselves an extension already, haven't they?
April
7th?
April-ish.
And I'm just trying to think within the timeline, what they accomplish, what they can push through, because we've got one bill over here, we've got the LEARNS Act bill. So, I mean, there's some variables there also that we need to kind of wait on Congress to see what they're doing in order, because that's gonna affect us also,
Yeah,
as far as
hopefully May
numbers.
1st-ish, you're gonna know a lot more information.
Yeah.
Are there other questions or concerns? Are there other questions or concerns? If not,